Ladies and gentlemen of the interwebs, the theme of tonight's show is going to be something along the lines of United we stand, divided we fall. Intro, Tucker Carlson on Piers Morgan. Behold.
Killing people who committed no crime is wrong, period. That's the basis of Christian belief. It's the basis of Western civilization. Dropping bombs on people who did nothing wrong is a crime, period. That is why we say we are better than the terrorists, because we don't kill people who did nothing wrong. And by definition, children haven't done anything wrong. So you are not allowed to kill them. And now there's an entire network of, not a television network, but a loosely aligned network arguing that it's somehow wrong to say it's immoral to kill children. And I think it's immoral to kill children no matter who kills the children, whether it's the government of the United States, the government of Sri Lanka, the government of Belgium, the government of Israel, Hamas. It doesn't matter. It is immoral to kill people who haven't done anything wrong. That's why Hiroshima is a problem. That's why I've complained about Hiroshima. That's why the Nazis were bad. That's why everybody who murders innocents is wrong. And when did that become controversial? Like I said, I articulated that and was immediately attacked by all these, people on the so-called right. I was like, then what is the whole point? What is the point of living here or having this country if we endorse murdering people who committed no crime? How are we better than the people we supposedly hate? The designation of terrorism grows from that understanding, which was a common understanding before 9/11. If you kill people intentionally who've committed no crime, you are the criminal. And who does that? Terrorists. That's why we call them terrorists. So I'm happy to call anyone who does that a terrorist.
Does that include Israel?
It includes anybody.
Does that include Israel?
It includes anybody.
No, but
anybody. But by the way, let me just say, it's so funny. Does that include Israel? It includes people I know personally in the United States. I know a lot of people who have okayed the order. I know in some cases people who participated in carrying out the order to murder people who committed no crime. Does that mean they're terrorists? I don't know. I'll let God figure out what that means. It means they're committing acts of terror. That is terrorism, because the point of it is not to punish the guilty. The point of it is to inspire fear. The point of it is to depopulate a place, move a population, whatever the point of it is. The effect of it is to punish people who've committed no crime.
It's an amazing thing. Like, I genuinely wonder who could listen to that and think Tucker Carlson is wrong. I'm going to give everybody the link to that particular tweet. Like, it's an amazing thing. The gotcha, like Piers Morgan trying to get the gotcha. And I'll give it to Piers Morgan. I guess he knows what makes for entertaining television. To try to get the gotcha, like, oh my goodness, Tucker Carlson calls Israel a terrorist state. First of all, that's not what happened. The idea that Piers Morgan would ask anybody whether or not random killing of innocents would qualify as terroristic behavior or criminality, and then to suggest, well, does that include Israel? It includes every country on earth. And the question itself presupposes a double standard that creates a certain degree of animosity. I was thinking this, we criticize the Chinese Communist Party, left, right, and center. I mean, only rarely do you get someone calling you, anti-Asian, anti-Chinese. No, because everybody understands the Chinese Communist Party is different from Chinese people in China. And some might even say that the Chinese people in China are victims of the Chinese Communist Party, much in the same way that I would argue Israelis in Israel were the victims of the government's tyrannical, inhumane COVID policy. But the idea that you would say, well, does that include a country? That question itself suggests that there would be a country, any country, that would be exempt from moral and legal consequences for such behavior. I'm not back in the Maple Gulag, people. We're on the road in the Florida Keys for Thanksgiving weekend. So sorry if the audio is not going to be so good, but I probably should have told you that before going live. I'll get back to that in a second. Does that include Israel? The amazing thing is, and people don't understand that this creates the animosity it purports to condemn. Does that include it? I've called the Canadian government a terrorist government. Does that reflect on all Canadians? Am I calling all Canadians terrorists? No, I'm calling some Canadians terrorists, not all of them. But the idea to say, okay, you can call Canada a terrorist government, you can call China a communist government and condemn it for its atrocities, but you can't call Israel that because it would be anti-Semitic. If you believe it and if you can justify the argument, there's no country on earth that is exempt from having to defend itself from accusations of cruel and inhumane behavior by the government. There was another one. It's funny. I just actually saw it before going live today. I heard, what's his face? The guy there, Theo Vaughn. I heard him say it live. And I'm like, man, Rogan's going to get in trouble for this. I don't like putting out those tweets because I don't want people thinking I'm like the dog whistle to get the left to pounce, or the left or the woke right, whatever, activists who hate Rogan to pounce on Rogan. I heard Theo Vaughn say it, and I swear to you, in the moment, I'm jogging, I'm like, oh my goodness. Theo Vaughn, he's either making a joke or just being stupid about a particular issue. That being that I don't believe that Israel was behind the assassination of JFK. Set that aside. I was like, oh my goodness, they're going to go after Rogan for this. And sure as sugar, someone did. Listen to this.
There's photos of Nancy Pelosi with JFK. Think of that. That was before we didn't go to the moon.
Yeah.
It's 1963.
That was before Israel didn't kill him.
You think so?
I didn't say anything.
There's photos of Nancy Pelosi.
Stupid. It's so stupid, but I guess maybe the Persian Jewess might not be the best account to expect objectivity when dealing with either jokes or these types of comments. I don't know what's more disgusting, the way that Theo Vaughn casually spreads anti-Semitic blood libel, or the way Joe Rogan giggles when Theo does it. I happen to think it's a pure matter of fact. It's a stupid theory to posit that Israel killed JFK. I think JFK, I think it was more of the deep state of America. But I had to bring up the tweet because it's stupid. And to say blood libel, but as if to say a country with a robust history of assassinations to the point where it's a source of pride when some people say it, and then it's a source of anti-Semitic blood libel when other people suggest it. This was from Le Monde. One map to visualize 70 years of targeted assassinations by Israel. It's got a robust history. Le Monde looks into Israel's targeted elimination of its enemies since 1948. On Saturday, the Israeli army said it had killed Hezbollah chief Nassan. What year was this from? This is an old article. I just brought it up to say, it's an amazing thing. When Israel and Israeli officials want to celebrate their sophistication of intelligence, extrajudicial assassinations are a source of pride. They say, nobody's safe. You commit a crime, we will find you and we will get you. When someone makes a joke about it or pivots from 70 years of targeted assassinations to maybe they killed JFK, well, then it's blood libel. And the idea that any country on earth would be exempt, shielded from defending itself against accusations of inhumane, illegal, criminal, war crime type conduct. America's not exempt from that. For what they did in Iraq, for what George W. Bush did, they're not exempt from that when it comes to the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I appreciate all the arguments as to whether or not it was necessary to deliberately target civilians, 80,000 of them, to nuke them in order to subdue an enemy that would not allegedly surrender. Deliberate targeting of civilians to coerce a settlement. I don't know how you describe it as anything other, but now it's 80 years in the future with 80 years of hindsight, 80 years of current moral judgment to the standards back then. The argument, it was necessary to avoid a land invasion. Hundreds of thousands of American troops would have been killed. I appreciate the arguments. Was it absolutely necessary? Strategically, technically? No, I don't think so. But what do I know? I'm not a historian. Was it a flex of might to show the world what America had? Maybe, probably. Absolutely necessary? I don't want to engage in historical revisionism, but the idea to say that you can't call Obama a terrorist for extrajudicial assassinations of American citizens via drone bombs, that you couldn't accuse America of having engaged in immoral, potentially criminal conduct in its invasion of Iraq and 250,000 Iraqis, innocent Iraqis, dead. It was the price of regime change, according to Madeleine Albright. But it's the world in which we live. Double standards galore for the purposes of stifling discussion. I don't know who could disagree with Tucker Carlson. I love that Piers Morgan tries to get the clip, the headline. Tucker Carlson calls Israel a terrorist state. Oh my goodness. Oh my. No, every country on earth, if you engage in criminality, you should be held accountable. Every government on earth is distinguished and separate from its citizens. There is no government on earth that should be trusted, period. But there are some governments that you can trust to be criminals, and they should be scrutinized even more. All right, good evening, everybody. Where am I? I'm on the road. Florida Keys. I was at Robbie's Marina. I don't know if you can see that. You see that? Let's see. I can't get... There you go. Oh, yeah, look at that. Those scratch marks. That's because I had the tarpon bite the fish out of my hand again, trying to get the shot, trying to get the moment, and it's amazing. Let me see if I can bring this up here. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to show this, and the entire stream is going to get copy claimed by my own licensing agency. I'll play it anyhow. It's amazing. If you haven't seen Robbie's Marina, it's in the world. It's a place that everybody has to go to. I'm going to try just to go to the absolute. Oh, here we go. This is the money shot right here, people. Check this out. Yes, people. That's probably an 80. That might be 100-pound tarpon. And they've got.
Oh my God! That was the one. Look, you want some look? You want some look?
So that's Robbie's Marina in the Florida Keys. It's a place of magic, and we went back today. I take that as a compliment. Thank you. I ain't shit without Barnes. We went back today. We went to an antique shop, and I'm going to show you what I got. I got an alleged Civil War era cannonball. I got to figure out how to determine if it's from the Civil War. It weighs a good 12 pounds, and it's amazing. So we're going to see if, for the price, if it's not authentic, I won't care anyway. It's a nice, beautiful paperweight. It's not a shot put. That much is clear. There's no weight designated on it. Looks fake. I don't think it's fake. I think it's real. It smells real anyhow. So that's what we're going to do then. It's heavy as heck. Now, before we get into tonight's show and before Barnes hits the nice shoes. Hold on. What were my shoes? Oh, the American flag Crocs. Yes. Those are, I got those for my birthday a couple years ago. And they are awesome. All right, take that out. Before we get into tonight's show, I do want to thank our sponsor of the evening. And speaking of tyrannical governments that can't be trusted as far as you can throw them, and governments that freeze bank accounts, and governments that print cash until you have nothing left in your bank accounts except devalued fiat currency. What do you do to cover your ass? Buy some good assets. Central banks, hedge funds, even politicians, they are all doing the same thing right now when the country is running record high debts. They're buying gold, moving out of the dollar. And who's left holding the bag when the dollar keeps slipping? Everyday Americans, families who work hard, save responsibly, do everything right. You save $100 in your bank account. At the end of the year, it's worth 90. Your paychecks shrink, your money shrinks as fiat currency devalues. And what do you have to do? Well, you know what the elites are doing. They know hard assets, gold and silver, are the lifeboats when the dollar takes on water. That's why they are loading up. And here's the truth. You don't need to be left behind. You can do what they're doing. Protect yourself and your tushy. Gold Safe Exchange, they make it easy to secure your savings, to move part of it into physical metals you can hold. Absolute transparency, A+ rating from the Bureau of Better Business, and the price match guarantee, so you're always sure you're getting the best deal on gold, silver. Elites have already made their move. Don't let them leave you with worthless paper while they walk away with all of the real value. Take control, protect your savings, protect your future. Go down here, by the way, check this out. Where's my face? Where is it? It's here. Boo-yah special Viva Fry offer. Make sure you put in the thingy thing there, because if you click on the link below, you'll get the Viva special access for offer of $1,500 in free gold and silver with qualifying purchases. It is goldsafeexchange.com. Check it out, because the reality is, like, it's you can make money and you can keep money, and just by virtue of keeping money, it's losing value. And one thing I now understand about gold, silver, and Bitcoin to some degree, although maybe not these days, they don't go up in value so much as they remain flat while fiat currency gets devalued. And that's why if you buy $100 in gold right now, it'll be worth maybe $100 in gold later on while the fiat currency drops down, which is going to make its relative value even more. So go check it out. Thank you very much, everyone over there. And by the way, I forget. I was going to show you my baseball card that I'm Where did it go? I had a baseball card. A Shohei Ohtani kanji PSA 10 for sale on eBay. I'll flip the link later. Before Barnes gets here and gets into the show, I do want to play a bit of a video. Oh, okay. Hold on a second. So hey Viva, Candace Owens assassination claim. Apparently she deleted the tweet. I did see that Laura Loomer asked her for evidence of it. I'll believe it. People sometimes think things are threats when they're not. People sometimes think people are out to get them when they're not. I have no doubt that people are kind of out to get Candace Owens. I have no doubt that, like Mark Twain said, he might not have wished people dead, but he would have read some obituaries with great delight. I think there's people out there who, they might not be prone to violence, but they've, they might not cry if, misfortune were to befall Candace Owens. I am not one of those people. I think she's quirky, not always hyperbolic. But I did hear that. And then Laura Loomer said, show us the evidence. And apparently she deleted the tweet. All right. Before we get into something, we are live on Rumble, vivabarneslaw.locals.com, Twitter, and CommieTube. So check it out. Make sure that you are subscribed and that you have notifications turned on. Download the app from Rumble because it will give you instant notifications when any one of your creators goes live. Hold on a second. But what I did want to play a little bit right until Barnes gets here is Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's very disappointing. Speaking of threats, by the way, because that was my segue. Marjorie Taylor Greene announced her resignation effective January, and the video that she put out, it's sad, and it's sad. I'm not making fun of Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's sad when you get a feeling of despair watching her explain why she's getting the hell out of politics. I'll play a minute just so you get the feel for it.
Hi, everyone. I've always represented the common American man and woman as a member of the House of Representatives, which is why I've always been despised in Washington, D.C., and just never fit in. Americans are used by the political industrial complex of both political parties, election cycle after election cycle, in order to elect whichever side can convince Americans to hate the other side more. And the results are always the same. No matter which way the political pendulum swings, Republican or Democrat, nothing ever gets better for the common American man or woman. The debt goes higher, corporate and global interests remain Washington's sweethearts, American jobs continue to be replaced, whether it's by illegal labor or legal labor by visas or just shipped overseas. Small businesses continue to be swallowed by big corporations. Americans' hard-earned tax dollars always fund foreign wars, foreign aid, and foreign interest. And the spending power of the dollar continues to decline.
It's like Marjorie Taylor Greene appreciates the fine folk at Gold Safe Exchange in terms of protecting her. I'll stop there. You do get the idea of where she's going. And then she goes on to say how basically she feels betrayed, that there has been nobody who has been a more staunch supporter of Trump than Marjorie Taylor Greene, that when she got called a traitor for doing nothing more than remaining consistent on the Epstein files, it was, her last straw. And she's announced her resignation effective January. Now, why I say it's sad on the one hand, this is like COINTELPRO level fracturing of a movement that is going to be devastating for the midterms. And that's not a fear hiding a wish. That's a prediction hoping to be proven wrong, that there's still time between now and then to right the ship. Part of me hopes that Marjorie Taylor Greene is announcing her resignation to compel, maybe entice a reunification between her and Trump. Like I say, it's crazy because I don't care who you blame it on. Maybe you say Trump is the president, she should fall in line. Maybe you say Trump is president and he should be the bigger person and not, exacerbate conflict with Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has been a staunch supporter. Whoever you blame, the fighting is not productive. In fact, the fighting is highly unproductive and bad for the party. Part of me wants to believe that she put this video out there so they can make amends before January, and then she can say, I'm not resigning. I don't even know if that's possible anymore. I'm not resigning, and let's reunify for the upcoming 2026 midterms and kick some ass. The infighting has reached epic proportions to the point where in the comments whether or not you believe anything that happens on the internet, it is, I'm fairly certain there's an element of dead internet theory out there that you're reading bot accounts from foreign countries and whatever. But I talk to people in real life, and I know people who are real people who are expressing and sharing the same sentiments. This infighting is very, very bad. There has been some strategic misplays from the administration that there's no 3, 4, 7D chess explanations to justify it. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of the most populist voices out there, announcing her resignation, is not going to encourage anybody new to show up in 2026. It's going to deter a lot of people from voting. Whoever the hell replaces her, if anybody does, or if she does in fact follow through with this, it's not going to be a more populist voice than Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's going to be some rhino. So it's bad all around. I hope it encourages some kissing up and making amends with Thomas Massey, with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and tightening the ship a little bit, hopefully. I'm not all that encouraged about it. Now, by the way, I just saw this come up here, and I want to bring it up right now because it's from Nate the Great Brody over on CommieTube. Here we go. Nate says, Viva, thanks for the love. Looking great. Nate, for all of you, you know that he had open brain surgery to have a massive tumor removed from his brain earlier this week. My understanding, recovery is going well. Touch wood, pupu kanena hora, and may we all say our blessings and prayers for Nate. But Nate is in there. And Nate, good to see you again, man. And good to see you. It's fantastic. Nate, God bless you. You are my prayers every day, mine as well. Get better and stronger. Much love to you and your family. And we got Nate over here says, thanks for the love, everyone. So go check it out. Nate follow him on Twitter, get the updates. Literal brain surgery. They won't get into too much details. Removed a massive tumor from his brain, which we all hope is benign, but still an issue because it might grow back. And so they have to, work around that. And brain surgery is quite literally brain surgery. So everyone, as they say in the industry, prayers up for Nate. Now, let me get over here to Rumble. Super Buff Shah says, Viva, Roseanne just had Pulitzer on for the second time the other night talking about elections and biblical things. Do you go over his audit in Rumble yet? He needs to be interviewed. Help me help you. I will reach out to him. Absolutely. Marjorie Taylor Greene, over 5 years of selfless public service, grew her personal wealth from $700,000 to $25 million today. That's Obama level grift right there. Slow clap. I'm not sure, Randy, that is entirely accurate. And I think it's from a private but there's issue with her private construction company where people say that if she's employing illegals, then that's a problem in and of itself. And then we've got shiny rocks are going to zero compared to Bitcoin. You can actually buy things with Bitcoin right now. And the Engaged Few says, I'd love to see Trump deal with the Muslim Brotherhood the same way Hafez Assad did after they tried to kill him. Tadmor Prison 2.0. And then we got Joden 80 says, the fact that Charlie Kirk sacrificed his life for what Trump is giving us is a damn tragedy. The fact that Charlie Kirk sacrificed his life for what Trump is giving us is a damn tragedy. He should be ashamed. And then let's just get a few more over in vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Everyone should check that out as well. And Robert, if you're listening, come on in anytime soon. I'm going to start on a second subject here. vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Tip questions. Now that Marjorie Taylor Greene is running scared from our president, is anti-MAGA Tommy Massey out next, says Gray 101. I think that might be a joke. What are the odds President Trump stands with U.S. Senators John Husted, Lindsey Graham, and Richard Blumenthal in a limited kinetic deterrence against Russia? I don't know. Here, hold on a second. I just saw one coming from King of Biltong in the house. Premium Biltong from Biltong USA. High protein, keto friendly, no additives, U.S. sourced beef. Authentic South African flavor. Get some now at BiltongUSA.com. Use code Barnes for 10% off. Check it out, people. Not a sponsor of the show, an indirect sponsor. And let me see here. I'm just going to make sure Barnes has the link. Okay, there we go. And then we got a couple more over. I'll get started without Barnes on the substantive stuff of the evening. See the Veil says, all the words that Trump could have used against Marjorie Taylor Greene indicates his lack of knowledge of the dictionary, which is why he has an aide to write for him. Trump is not in New York. Trump is in an Oval Office where words have consequences, where he can't use New York language with a thumping of the chest and swiveling of the hips to get his way. We are not blind followers of Trump, and for him to expect due loyalty is lack of leadership quality and the behavior of slave master king mentality. I Hate Death says, I've been meaning to ask you for this for a month, so I'm getting it in early before I forget. What is Dr. King Lord Barnese's Esquire opinion on Jack Posobiec? I just can't see him past the car salesman vibe. Trustworthy or past? I'll tell you what I think, and it'll just be the segue into what I'm going to get into. Jack is, in my view, 100,000% trustworthy. And that brings us to something that we want to talk about with Barnes, which is the FBI news of the week, which is Thomas Matthew Crooks acted alone. Now, I put out a tweet a little earlier. So we're being told, this is what we're being told right now. Epstein killed himself. Bondi allegedly just discovered new information in the Epstein case, which many people are fearful is going to cause her to say, well, we can't comment on anything right now because there's an ongoing investigation. We can't find the January 6th pipe bomber. Steve Baker put out his expose. There still hasn't been really, as far as I'm concerned, a meaningful, not even a response, but comment on that expose. I had Julie Kelly on earlier this week, and we went over I had Carl Seraphin on in the after party at Locals. You remember the person of interest 2 and the person of interest 3. There's a famous picture of the person of interest 2. Running about Washington, D.C. on January 5th. Now, allegedly, person of interest 2, who was allegedly staying with person of interest 3 because they had rekindled a friendship, a long-lost friendship after 50 years, was taking pictures throughout Washington, D.C. and took a picture of the dumpster where the pipe bomb was later found. And person of interest 2 was investigated or interviewed by the then FBI, which we all think was part of this Fedsurrection. And person of interest 2's explanation for why they were taking pictures of what turned out to be the location of the pipe bomb was because they were taking pictures in DC of things bearing numerals for a book they were writing. And the FBI said, okay, all good, cleared. And we're expected to believe that when we're told now that they can't find the pipe bomber and person of interest 2 was properly cleared. Baker's investigative journalism can't be trusted, we're told. Tucker Carlson's investigative journalism can't be trusted. Thomas Crooks acted alone. He didn't have a social media footprint despite investigative journalism, one of which coming from Brianna Morello. And we have no further arrests in the Charlie Kirk assassination. We talk about transparency. I tell you, I honestly feel a little bit bad because in a way you feel like you're criticizing a friend. You feel like you're criticizing, I don't know, the FBI. I'm thoroughly convinced the FBI is a fundamentally, inherently corrupt to its core institution that's unable to be redeemed and unable to be remedied. I don't think Cash did enough of a purging that Harmeet Dillon did with her division and RFK Jr. did with his division. I think it's a fundamentally, thoroughly corrupt institution to its core, irremediably so. I still feel bad about it. I still feel bad, but I think I'm fair, and I don't think I've been slightly unfair at all. But when the administration touts transparency, it means more than saying the word transparency. When the Kash Patel comes out and says, transparency and results driven, yada yada, it takes more than the words. Transparency is not a word; it's conduct. And other than interviews on Fox News, transparency means answering specific questions and being transparent on specific issues. And now I say it's not getting the answers you want, but it's getting the answers to the questions. And when you ask certain questions like, are there other people being investigated in the Charlie Kirk assassination? We don't have an answer to that yet. That might explain why there hasn't been total transparency on the evidence adduced. The other thing is going to be it's a state issue in Utah. There's an ongoing trial, although there should be federal charges there. Transparency means addressing the substance of Steve Baker's expose and not an opaque statement, the reward is still available. transparency is a process. And unfortunately, other than some statements from Cash, which proved to be more or less accurate at the time, and then some corrections, unfortunately, we're not getting transparency, and it's leading to people having a lot of conspiracy theories and doubts in an administration that they wanted to have faith in, did have faith in, and hope will provide the results that they promised. And so I'm not sure if I'm being unfair. They say we've got questions. I've got questions about Thomas Crooks. We were told he had no social media footprint at the time. Bongino could not believe that he had no social media footprint, and now we're being told that he had no social media footprint, and that what those investigative journalists were reporting by way of social media footprint, posting comments on YouTube regarding assassination of political people and Democrats, that it's not Thomas Crooks. You know, he trained 43 times at a firearms range over the course of a year. 43 times. Do we know who else trained on those specific 43 days? Was there any meaningful overlap? I asked. This comes back to Jack Posobiec. I was like, all right, do we have a list of who else was training at the firing range when Thomas Crooks was there 40 some odd times in a year? Jack Posobiec said, yeah, we have. There seems to be at least one overlapping name who was there on the same days. Do we know that name? No. But we're told that Thomas Crooks acted alone. He had no social media footprint. Despite everything that was said earlier, and despite all the things that we will never believe in a million years, but at least if they're true, let's see the evidence. Transparency is a process. It's not a word. It's not a promise. It's a process. And I'm not sure that we're living through it. Robert, sir, come on in. I think I see you in the backdrop. I hope Robert hasn't been waiting for me to take a breath, because I won't stop taking a breath. Sir, how goes the battle?
Good.
Robert, am I being unfair on the FBI?
You're being too generous.
Well, we're going to get into it tonight. What do we have on the menu? What are we talking about tonight?
Bondi's betrayal on the Epstein case, the Second Amendment, that she is busy betraying a bunch of gun owners of America and other groups across the country in a wide range of federal litigation, as well as on Big Pharma in the upcoming Brooke Jackson case, as well as for the January 6th defendants who had sued to try to get relief, and Bondi's trying to shut it down. We have James Comey, the judge and the magistrate judge in the James Comey case, caught lying about the federal prosecution in that case. We've got the Ukraine peace negotiations ongoing as we speak in Switzerland. We'll talk about whether that has any progress of peace and what it is and what it isn't. A lot of misinformation out there. The SCOTUS, parental rights at SCOTUS, executive power, oral argument, a case we previously discussed. Oral argument will happen this week. And birthright citizenship might be taken back up. We won't know until Monday. The National Guard shut down in the District of Corruption, and ICE blocked from New York courts and New York systems of being able to actually enforce immigration law. Big tech being promoted and protected by the same judge who usually protects the deep state, Judge Boasberg, who was covering for Meta, Facebook, who was busy helping groom your children for perverts.
People will not believe the distinction that judge drew in that particular case, but we'll get to it.
No doubt about it. Russiagate, this is Trump's old RICO suit on appeal at the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. The Department of Justice suing the state of California because they allow illegal immigrants to be treated as if they are in-state residents and thus treated better for tuition purposes than residents of the United States of America who live outside California. So the Justice Department is sued on those grounds. And we got a couple of fun cases. We have when not to make a citizen's arrest and how not to make it.
We'll get to that one in the after party. It'll blow your mind, people.
A second one, which is how not to commit a crime. Remember, never in writing, always in cash. If you're going to shoot your husband and claim self-defense, don't be busy searching it online right before you do it. So there's a couple of fun cases along with all the rest.
So look, this is where I say, am I being unfair to the FBI? I mean, first of all, I don't think I am. Cash has been bungling, outright now. Cash has been bungling everything. The management of ongoing cases. His girlfriend suing podcasters. I don't care that they say it's not him doing it. It's his lawyer doing it. And even if it's not him doing it, everybody thinks he is.
Do you see the little tidbit with X this week allowed for a day access to being able to search where an account was registered from? Did you see where Alexis Wilkins?
No, Robert. It was
reportedly from.
It was Milo. I'm sure it was a meme. Look,
Maybe, I don't know. It said
it
Israel.
said is, but it also said Donald.
That'd be funny if it was.
It
Yeah, I
said-
assumed it was something else, but I was like, if that's really true, it turns out like all the MAGA people, fake MAGA people that harass us online, they're all from India. They're all Indian bots. It's all over the place.
I'm adhering to the dead internet theory. Like, unless I know the people personally, I believe that they're fake people. But it still irritates me sometimes to read the idiocy. But no, like, Kash Patel or his girlfriend using Kash Patel's personal lawyer to sue podcasters, and everyone's like, well, it's not him. Even if it's not him behind the scenes doing it, everybody thinks he is, and so you should govern yourself accordingly anyhow. I think they're baseless, stupid suits. She's a nice woman, and I will defend her when people post that meme saying she's found, her Twitter account was based in Israel. It wasn't, Robert. It was based in America. But set that aside. The FBI answers to the DOJ to some extent, I guess. So maybe I should be like, laying all the blame into Bondi.
Oh, well, it is to a large degree. I mean, they are effectively a division of the Justice Department.
So, and that is that, it says it's Department of Justice. So they answer to Bondi. Bondi calls the shots, and Bondi's been forgive the expletive, fucking everything up since day one in a incompetent and a corrupt manner. The Epstein files being just the latest debacle. We took some shit. I took some shit. I don't mind. I kind of like it. It's, it makes the vindication all the more vindicating. They have now, that bill got passed last week. They're going to disclose some Epstein stuff. The resolution allows for, what's it called when you black out information? Redactions based on, privacy and based on, I don't know, sources and whatever. What do you think of Benny Johnson coming out? Is it Benny Johnson? No, Speaker Johnson coming out and saying, we've got to redact it for national security issues. I mean, is that not, am I wrong in reading that and thinking there's no other way to read that other than they're confirming that Epstein has ties to intelligence?
Agreed. I don't know any other way to read it. So for those that didn't track it all the way through, there was the promises by the Trump administration to release the Epstein files and to bring Epstein prosecutions that against anyone who was criminally implicated in those files. The Attorney General Bondi campaigned on this issue before President Trump got elected. So did FBI Director Kash Patel. So did Deputy Director Dan Bongino. And so did, though he did it somewhat begrudgingly, President Trump. And as he said, we want to make sure there's no privacy violated, but otherwise I have no problem with the Epstein files being disclosed. As soon as they get in, there's big promises. They bring a bunch of influencers to the White House. They say, here's the first level of Epstein file disclosures. Mike Cernovich, everybody else running around with these big, huge binders. And it turned out there was nothing new in there at all. So it just humiliated all of them, probably for forever in many respects. So then Bonnie says, don't worry, it's on her desk. And then she says, oh, don't worry, I've asked for it from Kash Patel, and Kash is getting it for me. And there's just, while all of this is going on, Tom Fitton at Judicial Watch had filed a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information Act request, for disclosure of these files pursuant to those laws. And so the FOIA office at the FBI was actually coordinating all of this. It doesn't appear that Patel was ever organizing anything, despite what he said. It doesn't appear that Bondi was ever organizing anything, despite what she said. And all of a sudden, late April, early May, that as they're getting all the files together, the FOIA people, Bondi, I guess, asked the FOIA people, okay, whose names are really on there? And they're like, well, probably the most common is Donald Trump. And apparently that panicked her. And she all of a sudden ran to Trump and said, you're the one, which is not what it really meant that his name was in those files. Because, in fact, the number one reason from what we've seen so far that Trump's name was all over the files is because Epstein was trying to figure out ways to extort him or blackmail him or try to find ways to undermine him once he became president. That's what Trump himself is not in anything that's been released. It's people talking about Trump.
And just to flesh that out so people fully appreciate it, there was an email that was released last week of Michael Wolff, the journalist, colluding with Epstein in an attempt to suborn extortion material on Trump, to say, now would be a good week to gain some political favor, to bring up some bad stuff against Trump. And even Epstein obviously didn't have it, because if he did, it would have come out by now. So his name was in there. But as far as I'm concerned, in an exonerating way, they redacted Virginia Giuffre's name from the Trump spent hours with Epstein sex victim number one. It was Virginia Giuffre who had already exonerated Trump and spoke very highly of him on multiple occasions. So just so people appreciate that. Sorry, go on.
Absolutely. And so, so throughout the files that what we've seen so far, but whatever happened, it appears Bondi panicked. There may have been other bad faith actors afoot and they run to Trump and say, we got to shut this down. We got to shut this whole thing down. And so Trump says, okay. And they come back and say, you know what? There's actually nothing to see here in the Epstein file. It's the meme of everything's on fire behind you.
Oh, sorry, Robert. I actually just wanted to correct. I don't think Cernovich was there. I think it was DC Drain.
No, Cernovich was one of them there. I'm pretty sure.
Was it? Okay, yeah. I'll double check.
He was trying to hide behind some people once he figured out what was there.
Oh no, because I think Cernovich was the one who appreciated pretty immediately that there was nothing new in there.
He did, but he's I think sitting in behind. He mostly hides behind the camera.
Yeah, I think it was
because he figured out, oh my goodness, they friggin' lied to me. So he was just trying to figure out how to get out of there. The DC Drano was the one. Woohoo! Look at this! Oh yeah, because that's how he got taken for a ride. But so they panic. They say there's nothing to see here. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino do that hostage video. Where they're sitting down and they're saying, Epstein definitely killed himself. Definitely killed himself. There's nothing else to see here. There's nothing else to see with the Trump assassination. There's nothing else to see there either. They'll be mocked for forever. And so claiming Epstein killed himself, and then they compound their errors because Bondi is incredibly incompetent. Says that they released the video of Epstein's cell. It's not even of Epstein's cell. There's minutes missing from the video that she claimed weren't missing. And then she said it was just an accident. It was 1 minute. It turns out there's 4 minutes missing. I mean, it's just error after error after error after error. The body language people, behavior language people do an analysis. And they said as soon as the person asked about Epstein being an intelligence asset, all of a sudden Bondi's eyes are going like this, and Rubio, Chase Hughes was like, there must be something about Epstein being an intelligence asset because everybody's panicking the moment the word is even mentioned next to his name. So so Trump decides to go full-blown cover-up mode, one of the dumbest cover-ups of all time. Self-sabotage times 10 at the advice of Pam Bondi. That does not satisfy anybody, not anybody who's studied Epstein for a long time. People are coming up with 4D chess interpretations. There was no 4D chess going on. You have to be God bless Tom Longo. I like Tom, but he's gone full QAnon. He thinks that Marjorie Taylor Greene is secretly working with the City of London, and the City of London is doing all this. And Trump is working with the Federal Reserve to take down the euro, says dollar. It's just insanity times insanity. But so nobody's buying it. Democrats smell weakness because of how terrible Trump is handling this. So Thomas Massie, Marjorie Taylor Greene, longtime critics on Epstein, contrary to what you've seen out there, Massie started talking about Epstein in 2017. So the idea, he just made this up late to bash Trump. Hey, you're an idiot. Quit being dumb ain't nothing to be proud of, son. And so they decide they're going to release it using a discharge petition. Democrats jump on board because partially Ro Khanna, who is trying to pursue populist bridges between the left and the right. But other Democrats are like, holy cow, Trump is scared. This is great. We're going to use this against Trump. And Trump keeps compounding it by trying, by trying to drag in Lauren Boebert to the Situation Room and say national security requires you keep this shut up. She doesn't take the bait. Nancy Mace doesn't take the bait. And as we predicted, once they had to vote on it, ain't nobody other than that congressman from Northeast Louisiana. And to give you an idea what his motivation is, what this may relate to, they once asked him who it was his favorite country, U.S. or Israel. Yeah. You might think that's an easy answer for a congressman from Northeast Louisiana, but no, that was gosh darn hard. He was like, that's like asking me to choose between my wife and my daughter. That's who this guy is. He was the one guy to, on principle, vote against disclosure of the Epstein files. He goes over to the Senate. And no senator wants to be on record, even though maybe a few of them are implicated in there if you really dig deep. They're implicated in a certain Ukrainian corruption scandal we'll get to in a little bit. But they're like, oh, yeah, well, we all agree. We all agree. And, of course, Trump, by this point, who had burned bridges with Thomas Massie and the entire libertarian part of his base, and then compounded it by burning bridges with Marjorie Taylor Greene, a big MAGA part of his base, so much so that she's like, I'm done with this nonsense. I'm out of here. I'm retiring from Congress in January. This is all a bunch of crap. This is a waste of time, money, and effort. And I got better things to do with my life than to bang my head against the corrupt wall that is the District of Corruption. And a guy I went to bat for 8 years decides to call me a traitor while he's out there saying other people should be hung and executed for being seditious traitors.
Who did off topic but on topic? Who was Trump meeting with? The person that was meeting with an Israeli spy, a confirmed Israeli spy.
That was Huckabee. Huckabee was meeting with Pollock. Pollock is the American who stole a bunch of U.S. secrets, served 25 years in prison here, then went to Israel, and was welcomed by Bibi Netanyahu at the airport as a hero for being, again, an indisputable seditious traitor of America. That's who's a hero in Israel. And our ambassador, Mike Huckabee, who can't get the Bible right, God bless him, even as a reverend, thinks that the Israel of the Old Testament is Bibi Netanyahu inherited it somehow. And Mike, I'm never listening to another sermon from Mikey boy for a long time. But he was a longtime advocate of Pollock, met with him in secret. Guess who his schedule and calendar guy is?
Levin's son or Levin's son-in-law?
Stepson. Yes, Levin, who's been busy purging people out of the State Department if you say boo about Israel, or if you're not always on the line of kissing that wall of their mindset. Yeah, so by the way, if you have any doubt, Bibi Netanyahu was linking to stories written by Dropsite, published in Jacobin, to go after his political enemies, saying, yeah, Epstein was definitely connected to all these Israeli prime ministers and other people. So he's admitted it in his own route. Second time around, he's done that, by the way. So goes to the Senate. So Trump now decides finally to sign on and pretend that he was always for it. And you got the cat turds of the world that go from, I want the Epstein files out now, to Epstein files are irrelevant. Why are you people obsessed with the Epstein files? To, oh yeah, I always wanted the Epstein files right now. People who get their positions from whatever Donald Trump tells them. I mean, it's pure cultish, that they have no independent views of their own. They cannot process information in their brain unless Donald tells them what to think. It is sad.
Well, I mean, and not to put Cat Turd on blast in particular, he's always welcome to come on. I'd love to have a discussion with him. This week, tweeting out positive affirmation about the unemployment numbers without
realizing it's going up.
Without realizing that
there's some things you want to go up. Unemployment isn't one of them, Cat Turd.
No, I think because people are saying, like, oh, there's more jobs, and yet somehow there's more unemployment as well. And so it's a smashing success for the Trump administration. Suck it, anti-Trumpers, or, suck it, Trump critics. Panic. Oh, God, I hate that. Yeah, okay, sorry. So where were we on the timeline of the Epstein documents?
So he signs it. And right away, Pam Bondi, betraying MAGA once again, is figuring out excuses. Well, there was two things that stood out. I don't know if you know who this Canadian was. But they really thought, okay, we're going to suppress the news about Epstein. And they're also at the same time trying to suppress the news about the pipe bomber. You interviewed both Kyle and interviewed Julie Kelly.
Did you see
watching that to figure out who's more persuasive and who isn't? God bless Julie. I think she has me blocked at the moment.
I'm going to see if I'm blocked yet. But
you were generous and gentle in the questioning. It was just she didn't have good persuasive answers. But you have all of those issues lingering. So what do? They go, we'll crush all those news stories because we'll come out and talk about this Canadian Olympian who has some sort of drug connection, and everybody will be so obsessed with him that they won't even ask about Epstein. Or the pipe bomb or anything else. I was like, oh my God. Hey, credit. I do think Bongino doesn't want any part of this because I noticed he didn't show up at the press conference. Bondi was there. Blanche was there. Patel was there. But Dan Bongino, he had an appointment he had to get to. He couldn't make that appointment. He's not that dumb. So they're out there trying to spin. And she's like, well, maybe, I got to take a look at, there might be an open case. And this is what I said last week. So going all the way back, all of this started with documents that were in the FOIA department that were supposed to be disclosed to Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton, pursuant to FOIA. That's what she shut down, Pam Bondi, in the summer. Said there's nothing to see here, not going to disclose anything. Well, that litigation is ongoing. Fitton has sued the administration. This legislation by Tom Massey and Ro Khanna was a discharge petition to circumvent the committee process in Congress, because otherwise it would never see the light of day. It tells you so much about Congress that you have a bill that, when actually voted on, is overwhelmingly supported with only one person opposing it. And yet, but for the discharge petition protocol, it never would have actually been voted on.
Mhm.
Shows you, I mean, it's that kind of issue that has convinced the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world that Congress is just one big waste of space. So finally, but within the bill itself, substantively, it's meant to mirror and mimic the FOIA laws. So Michael Tracy, who I don't think he's ever seen any woman abused in his life. I think he's pretty sure that they're all fake stories. Every Me Too story, I think Michael Tracy thinks is a fake story. Because he's been obsessed with bashing. Oh, this is all exaggerated. The Epstein case, da, 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 da. Though he himself can't come up with any explanation as to why Epstein got the money he did or has the contacts he has. At least not that I've seen. He was misinterpreting. He's like, oh, look at these loopholes in the law. The law is written to mirror the FOIA laws, and it simply is broader than those. In other words, the FOIA laws give broad discretion to the Justice Department when they disclose things. This restricts those limitations. So it says if it's classified, if it would be an unwarranted invasion of privacy, or if there's it is necessary for a pending criminal case, you can temporarily withhold it, but must give a summary of what's there. So that's why it's like the FOIA laws, but even more limited in terms of what Bondi's discretion is. So she is on the clock. She's got 30 days from when Trump signed the law, which is going to be before Christmas, to disclose everything ordered disclosed, unless it fits within one of those exceptions. She is already coming up with excuses.
So she said, I was trying to find the clip, but I played it a couple times this week, that she's talking about new information that has been revealed to her.
Yeah,
how the heck?
She meant, by the way, she meant Trump's truth post. So because she's like, oh, we have a pending investigation now. And they're like, hold on a second. He said there was no investigation. It was closed just months ago. Well, when is it? See, what she's referring to that she reopened was when Trump said, hey, please somebody look at this, the Democratic names. And she sent it to New York. That's what she's referencing, by the way. But she couldn't say, well, Trump put a truth post up. That's my new information, is Trump's truth post. That would make it look like a complete joke. And I said at the time when Trump did it, I was like, this is just an excuse to try to hide and delay disclosure of the information under the guise the Southern District of New York is conducting an investigation that it ain't, because the head prosecutor there is conflicted. He can't investigate it because he represented several of the people that Trump listed. J.P. Morgan, Chase, Reid Hoffman of LinkedIn. So they keep making they're becoming like a bad comedy show. The Bondi show is a bad comedy show at the White House. It's like it's like that Veep show that what's her name was, that comedy satire of the vice president's role. But it's like that on steroids, because it's just also imagine the person being really, really stupid, and that's Bondi. And that's what you have. I mean, Trump's a reality TV show of his own kind. All of them are reality TV shows. Will we go to nuclear war next year? Tune in on next week. Tune in on Wednesday at 9. You got that going on, and now you got Bondi. It was just an utter disgrace. It was like a satirical version of an attorney general.
I know my area of expertise in this, and I just wanted to bring up I'll bring it up afterwards. But people are saying, okay, now she's talking about new information. She's going to use that as a pretext to not disclose information under the excuse that it falls within an active investigation, and therefore they are prevented from disclosing it. Is that where she's going to go with it?
Yes. So she's thinking, I can say some of this stuff is classified national security. I can say some of it's unwarranted invasion of privacy. But anything else I don't want to disclose, I'll just say as part of the investigation. That's when they followed up and they're like, what new information? And she's like, well, really new. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up as a script writer. She's like a naturally talentless prosecutor and just incompetent at levels. I was trying to remember a self-created sabotage scandal like that. I don't know of any in American history. This has been the worst, and at the center of it is Pam Bondi.
So I don't know who we know that's in the administration. Do they not see it, or are they sitting around?
I would hope so, but they're busy running cover as to know that pipe bomber isn't the pipe bomber. We swear to God that isn't that's definitely not the person. We can't tell you it's not the person, but we'll have our favorite media leak out that's definitely not the person. They don't even have good excuses. And he acted alone. Well, we didn't say he acted alone. We just said we would have no motivation to lie to you about whether he acted alone. I was like, you guys are just digging and digging and digging yourselves in deeper holes. I have never seen levels of incompetence and ineptitude at this scale. And the entire top of ranks of the Justice Department is just extraordinarily inept and incompetent. And at the center of it is Pam Bondi.
But now, so what is going to happen with this? Oh, geez, what was the name of the bill that they just passed for the Epstein thing?
The Epstein Transparency Act or Epstein Files Transparency Act, something like that.
So,
and there's criminal punishment. And here's what will happen. If they don't disclose what should be disclosed, then as soon as the Democrats take back the House, Pam Bondi gets impeached, President gets impeached, and probably Blanche gets impeached. They all get impeached. Kash Patel probably gets impeached. And they can use the Epstein case because this is a gift to Democrats. The longer they delay disclosure, the more Trump just cutting himself and cutting himself and cutting himself in political incompetency I've never seen at this scale. And so this is just making it worse and making it worse and making it worse. So they should just, hey, it's the holidays. Everybody's going to be gone anyway. Just dump it, unload it, get rid of it, get it out the door. Don't let this drag out or drag on.
Well, I mean, it's unfortunately too late for that. The only question is whether or not they can salvage anything. When it comes to Marjorie Taylor Greene's announcement that she's going to resign in January, is there a way for her to walk it back if she and Trump make amends?
Potentially, but I think it's beyond Trump. I think she is very naive and idealistic is how I would call her. I thought of this from the time she entered Congress. So if you've studied Congress over a long period of time, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene don't usually stay around because they usually enter Congress very idealistic, very hopeful, very optimistic. They think, hey, I can be Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. I can go up there and change the rules and change the law and make the world a better place, a safer place, a stronger place. And as soon as you get up there, you discover it is it is just a morass of corruption and sleaze and sociopathology and psychopathology, especially today. We make the ending days of Rome look glamorous and moral by comparison. That's what Washington, D.C. is. That's when somebody like Madison Cawthorn goes up there and just accidentally leaks out, by the way, they invite you to sex orgies all the time as soon as you get up here. That's why Epstein was the ultimate operative in this kind of gray space world. A little bit of human trafficking, a little bit of gun running, a little bit of money laundering, a little bit of sleaze. Why do you think Larry Summers, high-ranking Democrat, president of Harvard, is saying, hey, Jeffrey, can you give me help about how I can perv on my student? And even though I'm married, perv on my student so that I can get her into an affair in our mentor relationship? I mean, you ask Epstein for this advice? I mean, whatever. So that gives you an idea for the degree of amorality and immorality that dominates these citadels of power. And if you're an idealist and you walk into that, it is a whack in the face. And I think she believed that Trump could be the ultimate guy to break it through and break it down. She stood by him again and again and again when nobody else did. Stood by the January 6th defendants when everybody abandoned him. Stood by Trump when everybody was walking away, while Lindsey Graham was sticking the knife in his back right on the Senate floor. The guy that Trump's busy running around and can't wait to help. And so when she sees someone even like Trump fail to deliver on reform, and in fact be one of the principal obstacles to reform, it's psychologically and emotionally, that's going to do a damage totally different than him attacking you for campaign purposes. That's going to be like, oh, this place is beyond being fixed, beyond being repaired, beyond being corrected. Why should I stick around and just deal with this crap for the next year when I can just get out of it? I mean, I had the same approach when I was a kid. I mean, I had idealistic ideas about Washington, went down there one summer, and I got a crash course that I'll never forget. And I was like, I'm out of here. I bet on politics, but I didn't even vote for the next 20 years. And so I understand where she's coming from. You got to be a farmer like Massey to be completely immune from it, because he's a farmer. And if you're a farmer, you deal with all kinds of crazy crap. The weather comes and it's not supposed to come. It does come when it doesn't supposed to come. Maybe the pig's acting right, maybe he's acting wrong. Maybe the rooster's running around doing this and that. Maybe the wolves got in, maybe they didn't. So when you're a farmer, nothing phases you. It's like when I'm representing the Amish farmers. Pretty much nothing. It doesn't matter. The whole world could be trying to take them apart. And they're like, it's okay. I got the cow. I got the milk. I got this. Everything's going. My little kid's running around. Oh, it's all right. They have just a different perspective. Massey is very unusual and unique in American congressional history. Everybody else could, sooner or later, it's psychologically so damaging to be a decent person in such an indecent world that I'm not surprised that she left. And I don't think she'll be coming back at all. I don't think she'll be running for any kind of office in the future.
Robert, speaking of her defense of the January 6th defendants, it's not on our list, but I'm going to ask you anyhow. I don't know if you saw my interview with, or my stream with Jake Lang on Friday. What he did up in Michigan with his,
trying to provoke. I mean, I wasn't a big. I got his whole. He's going to sue everybody. Maybe some people got some things wrong. Maybe they didn't. God bless him. But why does he show up in some of these settings? I mean, I understand concern about Islamification and things of that nature. The U.S. is not at that risk. God bless Carl Benjamin. I understand. You're in the U.K., bro. Okay, we got 1% here. We don't got 30%. We don't got what you're dealing with.
Canada's up to 4.5% or 5%. Let me double check that. But
and they're just natural wusses coming to. So I don't share that, and I'm not a big fan of going into a Muslim neighborhood and doing some of the things that the people around him were doing. I just. By the way, that area voted for Donald Trump. By the way, so it struck me. I mean, is it a coincidence that while Israel's bleeding out politically in the U.S., we're suddenly seeing renewed interest in Islam, everybody, Islam, scary, Islam, scary. I don't think so. And I understand Jake says he has no ties to any of that. Okay. There's a bunch of people in the J6 community that don't like him. I've heard from them myself.
I took
God
shit.
Bless him, but that's reality. Him screaming at Owen Schroyer for just reporting on that is missing the boat.
And I say I didn't take shit, but I was surprised when I had Jake on the first time, and then other people in the Jan 6 community that I was also friends with were like, yeah, we're suspicious of him. He's a Fed. He's an agent provocateur. He's an activist, and he was doing
any of those things. But I think he has he is perceived in such a way that he doesn't have some friends in places where he thought he did.
Well, this is the question that I want to defend myself to. Like I said, Jake, going into a Muslim area and slapping a Quran with bacon and trying to set it on fire and I said, like,
bad
that's
form. It's just bad form.
Well, but is it like I suggested
it could be considered provocation, such that the attack, I don't think it will work. The kind of provocation that typically is justification for an assault is something like I provoke the assault by convincing you I'm about to attack you.
Okay, so because
I start the physical fight. It's not, hey, you offended my religion, I get to punch you in the face now. That's still not a legal defense.
Well, how about, to take things like the free speech argument, not threatening imminent violence, but going to a funeral and then, of a man and then saying something horrible about his spouse and you get punched in the worst thing you can possibly say to a human and then you get punched in the face. There is the fighting words doctrine. I just don't know what the extent of the application
Usually
is.
Fighting words doctrine is something like, I'm in reasonable fear that you're about to attack me. So okay. It goes back to that proportionality. So it's got to be the same proportionality. In other words, the method has to be proportional. I worry about my physical safety, so I attack you. Not my emotional safety, but my physical safety. So the individuals that attack them do not have a defense, as far as I can tell, unless there's something in Michigan law that's different or distinct. Now, the prosecution may look at the case differently because of his conduct and not want to reward and encourage that. It's almost like, what's his name? The Borat dude. Remember, he used to do these pranks, and it was either that or I think it was a documentary he was doing where, like, he was dressed up he brought his Klan outfit to a black dry cleaner and asking him to dry clean it.
That's kind of.
I'm going to tell you, I hadn't heard some of the Jewish jokes that you were saying the other day. I was like, well, why did they spend 40 years in the desert? Somebody dropped a quarter.
I mean, it's a classic.
But it was funny as heck.
All right, that's interesting because there was a case in Florida where someone was. Let me see here. Not that JLR is a lawyer; he's a good guy. Where this was Derek Evans breaking. Several men face felony charges for taunting Muslims during prayer with bacon at the University of South Florida. What the fuck? Why are the Muslims getting special treatment? I just don't know at a state level if this could be qualified as a hate crime.
It can be. It would be a version of, I don't know what the law is in Florida, but usually that's a version of harassment. So if it's seen that you have free speech rights, but that doesn't give you the right to harass somebody in their face.
Because that's what I'm wondering if it actually just backfires to the point where people say it's free speech, Viva, and we don't live in Canada. I'm like, yeah, but you remember the scene from the original Die Hard 3 where the guy was making Bruce Willis go. He said, "Go to Harlem" with a sign that says, "I hate the N-word." Like, okay, you do something like that, something bad is going to happen to you, and it's not because you're not, I don't want to say asking for it, but there are limitations where I would imagine someone says that is an act of provocation or an act of harassment to do it.
Yeah, and it could be considered definitely disorderly conduct because it goes beyond. It's where that boundary between disorderly conduct and speech is. You don't have to the degree that you're disrupting a community and event, not really based on speech, but trying to be provocative of a certain kind. So that's where that's the Portnoy case. To what degree is that Mississippi State student harassing him? Saying, how much of it is harassment versus him saying F the Jews and throwing some dimes at them? How much is that cross the line into disorderly conduct? How much of it is protected speech? And some of these people are really dancing around that line.
I was going to make it. It's a self-deprecating joke. I'm going to make it anyhow. When the guy threw the coins, I played it back to listen to hear if it sounded like silver. If it was just the regular coins, you could tell steel dinging on pavement. But if it was silver, I could pick those things up. Okay, so I feel
I don't get Portnoy. Like now, Portnoy is running around talking about he wants a hate speech code, and he's talking about not allowing people to make jokes. And it's like, whoa, it's Dave Portnoy. A guy who's been a troll and a provocateur most of his political publishing career. So there's that aspect. A guy who's going around, he's going to lecture anybody about morality. Portnoy, morality. I'm sorry, I don't put those two words together in the same sentence, but. It's like I get him being annoyed at the harassment. I think that it's fair for him to be annoyed at the harassment that people are doing. But at the same time, he wants to take it much further afield than it needs to get to.
No, and I would say, like, if someone burnt I'm not into burning books. If someone came up and threw bacon or change, I'd be like, I wouldn't care. I'd probably keep the change and eat the bacon. But it wouldn't bother me. But I said, like, there could be like a double-edged sword where it's arguably, in my view, and I feel somewhat vindicated for my initial Canadian view.
The way to think about it is it's illegal to burn a cross on somebody's lawn. At a certain level, that's speech, but at a certain level, it stops being speech and trespasses onto somebody else's rights. And it's where is that line? And I'm for making that line as pro-free speech as possible. But a lot of these people are really pushing up against that line. And saying that, we're trying to stop the Islamification. But if you want to stop Islamification, protest things like some of the Sharia law implementation in Muslim communities in a specific way relevant to that. Not bring bacon into the community. That's just being childish, and it's being repulsive, to be honest with you.
Well, and I told him viva voce, I was like, what it will actually do is make the community that he's trying to condemn look like victims in all of it, and he's going to look like the aggressor, and it's not a crusade. So I feel a little vindicated. I wasn't out in left field with my initial analysis. All right,
Bondi screw-ups don't stop there because they keep on going. The other big screw-up sheets is screwed up the January 6th case, screwed up the pipe bomber case, screwed up the assassination cases documented and detailed by Tucker Carlson. The things are all trying to pretend aren't really there. The screwed up the Epstein files. Has screwed up the big pharma case. She is covering for Pfizer. She received hundreds of thousands of dollars from Pfizer. And as soon as she got in, she shut down any case against Pfizer.
Just an important detail. She got $200,000+ in 1 year in 2021 for legal services. So you can put all of those timelines together.
Right. No, she was being hired by Pfizer at the time. Pfizer was facing a major legal risk over its COVID vaccine, both domestically and internationally. She comes in and she shuts down all the investigations into foreign corruption, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act concerning Pfizer. Then she turns around and supports the lies the Biden administration told in the Brooke Jackson case. She makes sure the people running the Civil Appellate Division, Yakov Roth as the Assistant Attorney General, and then his boss, both of them come from big corporate law firms. Both of them represented Big Pharma for many, many years. And so what are they doing in the Brooke Jackson case, the big case that could bring reconciliation to the COVID issue for the Trump voting constituency, that could bring remedy to the vaccine injured, that could bring accountability to those that lied about the COVID vaccine, that could bring deterrence for this ever happening again. They take the Biden administration side by lying to the courts and saying the official position of the Trump administration at the Health and Human Services Department, the Food and Drug Administration, is identical to the position that the Biden administration took, which, for those that don't remember, Brooke Jackson is the whistleblower who had spent decades working in the pharmaceutical space, including especially the clinical testing space. She was monitoring the clinical testing for the COVID-19 vaccine. She saw the worst, most egregious violations of clinical testing standards she had ever seen or even heard about in her life. She goes, and this is in 2020, she goes to the Justice Department. She discloses it in detail. They tell her, we're right on it. We're gonna stop this. While instead covering it up, while instead hiding it and lying to her all the way through. She figures out they're lying to her when they're about to announce a COVID vaccine shot to be mandated for 6-month-olds. She hires other counsel, including me. We legally we're able to go through a process where she can go public with the information. She does go public with the information once it's legally permitted to do so, and in the process, basically saves the lives of millions and millions of people around the world because the word gets out the COVID vaccine is not safe, is not effective. Her key tam case brought on the behalf of the American people, where she said that if we recover billions of dollars, she's going to put all of those billions of dollars aside for the vaccine injured, goes forward. And the Justice Department steps in at the last minute when it looks like we're finally going to get to the discovery stage of the case, which we'd been prohibited from getting to, and says, Judge, you cannot let this case go forward. It is the official. Go ahead.
It was 2 years after the suit was instituted.
Oh, yeah, 2 years after the suit has been brought. They come forward, actually 3 years fully at this final hearing, and they said where we had not been allowed any discovery, and the Biden administration comes in and says you cannot question or challenge the COVID vaccine because that is our official policy is not to challenge any vaccine, period. So the judge on those grounds dismissed, even though what we proved in the case was that the COVID vaccine was promised to the Trump administration under contractual law in exchange for billions and billions of dollars of taxpayer money, a safe, effective vaccine for the prevention of COVID-19, not a therapeutic that might help. And what they delivered was a dangerous, ineffective, not a vaccine that didn't prevent COVID-19. They breached the very 4 predicates for the deliverable. As such, that was fraud in the form of billions of dollars that the American people should be restored by Pfizer, the biggest criminally fined individual or organization in the history of man is Pfizer. And so it goes up to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. Trump gets elected. And the assumption is Trump administration will come in and announce, as Robert Kennedy did at Secretary of Health and Human Services, as Markey and others did at FDA and the CDC, and said, our position is no longer that this vaccine is beyond reproach, beyond second guessing, beyond questioning, that we have doubts about mRNA platform as a vaccine. Robert Malone is now brought into the Vaccine Advisory Committee. So there's clearly been a complete reversal in the public position of the Trump administration from the Biden administration within the health authorities. And yet, Pam Bondi and the people that run the Civil Appellate Division, including Yankoff Roth, go and lie to the federal courts and say no position has changed. And that is why we have oral arguments scheduled for the first week of December in New Orleans before the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, where the Justice Department will continue to lie to the court about the official position because pay-for-play Pam Bondi is protecting Pfizer at all costs.
This is Pam Bondi, who represented Pfizer during the relevant period, now refusing to reinstitute or maintaining the quashing of the Ketam case. Robert, I mentioned it last week when I really first appreciated this. How the hell is she not conflicted out of doing anything in this? And how the hell is a special, whatever you want to call it, special attorney?
A lot of the problem is the entire Justice Department is filled with big pharma people. So, and is it a coincidence that I understand certain people in the cabinet want to tell me that Swampy Susie Wiles is not swampy at all and she's really out there for Maha? Well, let's see some evidence of it. Let me give you an example of how Swampy Susie acts. This past week, Mark Mitchell was the Honest Pollster, Rasmussen Reports, Honest Pollster Online on X, was brought into the White House to have lunch with President Trump, met with Secretary Rubio, met with Susie Wiles and others, where he explained that the Trump administration is falling like a rock amongst core MAGA constituencies, particularly young voters, particularly independent voters, particularly Hispanic and Asian and Black voters that were part of the Trump coalition, and that they are, and some OG MAGA, deeply distressed with where he is going in the administration. And Susie Wiles is always there. Every single one of these meetings, she's magically there caretaking. What happens at the end of the week to completely gut all the good work Mark Mitchell did at the White House. Tony Fabrizio, longtime friend and ally of Susie Wiles, comes in with a completely fake poll to tell the president, "You're better than ever, Mr. President. You're higher than ever." Complete lies. Tony Fabrizio is infamous for faking polls. He's busy lobbying for foreign organizations and governments as we speak, using his connections to help foreign governments as we speak in the White House. But that's what Swampy Susie does. And if you don't say Swampy Susie is wonderful, if you don't put out hostage tweets like certain people had to do last week, then you're going to get knifed and gutted. So that's and who is the lifelong pal and friend and protector and patron of Pam Bondi? Swampy Susie Wiles. They go all the way back to Jacksonville, Florida. So she compounded all of it by deciding to undermine and gut the Second Amendment to the United States this week in multiple federal court cases.
One last thing, just to hammer home the Pfizer bullcrap trials, I had on Maddie DeGarry's parents back in the day when the children, when they were testing it on kids, 400 kids, I think was the total pool. And when Maddie DeGarry got, I forget what it was, transverse myelitis, or it wasn't Guillain-Barré syndrome, but when she got neurological damage, they removed her from the study, said she had a stomach ache, or what do they call it? Functional stomach ache, something along those lines, and basically removed that vaccine injury from the trials to claim that it was safe and effective on children. And so it's hard not to get blackpilled, Robert, because seeing what's going on with Pam Bondi in all respects. What's the Second Amendment cases that were coming up
There
this
are
week?
multiple Second Amendment cases brought. The NRA is kind of a joke these days. Big groups are like, the various firearms groups, but one of the good ones, really good ones, is Gun Owners of America. So they're challenging in multiple contexts. The National Firearms Act, the original Control Act, Gun Control Act, 1934, its main predicate legally and constitutionally was it's just a tax, everybody. It's not meant to control guns. No. National Firearms Act just meant to tax, that's all. So this is how they always get away with, stealing people's rights. Well, now the tax is gone. Tax got taken out in the one big, beautiful bill. So what's the excuse for all the regulation then? All the restriction then? All the permitting for the ATF to even exist for the most part? There isn't one. So Gun Owners of America have brought suit. And the Justice Department it was presumed that if the Trump administration was going to keep their word, they would be on board with saying, yes, Your Honor, that the petitioner is correct. The plaintiff is right. There is no longer a constitutional basis for this law to exist because the tax licensing regime is now gone. No. Not only that, not only are they defending the right to continue to constrict and regulate and restrict gun access in America under the guise of a tax law that no longer exists, they're going even further. Indeed, the lawyers that are on the front end of these cases are some of the biggest gun control freaks in the country. But who is empowering them? Pam Bondi. Who's empowering them? The Civil Appellate Division. These corrupt Todd Blanche. These are all people, if you knew Bondi undermined Zimmerman's defense in Florida, self-defense case. She was also pushing red flag laws. So people who knew the Second Amendment well knew she was no friend to the Second Amendment. And Harmeet Dillon is running around. Sorry, Harmeet, your excuse is lame. Quit pretending you have to defend unconstitutional laws just because you're the Justice Department. Garbage. No, you don't. Your obligation, in fact, go back and look at that oath you took, Harmeet. It doesn't say an oath to uphold the laws of Congress. It says to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. That's the oath. And so I get Dillon feels obligation to run interference for her boss, Bondi. It's a lame defense. It is garbage. Pam Bondi is making now some of the most aggressive anti-Second Amendment arguments that have ever been made by the Justice Department in American legal history. So it is her one last great betrayal of MAGA that she just continues on an unabated scale to do. That's the latest. We'll see if somebody up there will wake the heck up and reverse course and assign actual gun rights advocates to every Second Amendment case the Justice Department is handling.
All right. Well, it's tough. It's tough not to get blackpilled, Robert. Okay, so Bondi, we'll get. While we're on the black bill corruption, The James Comey case, was it the magistrate or the judge that came out and made the factually incorrect statement?
Magistrate.
Okay, and what was I was a little confused. I was listening to Bourbon with Barnes. I listened to it all week, and they were great. What was the statement that was the lie or the factually incorrect statement in the Comey case about how it was about the grand jury testimony?
It was multiple ones. The magistrate judge claimed that the way all of this became a disaster is because God bless Mike Davis, but he's been lying his rear off for a year defending Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche. He claimed, remember, there was a committee. The committee was working together to make sure these cases are really well done. And even some other people in the media have been trying to run this interference. James Woods was trying to claim this week. Oh, they're working really hard. It takes some time, blah, blah, blah. Well, just look at the James Comey case. That case got rushed at the last second. Pam Bondi had done no work on it, no prep work on it, no review on it.
It got rushed because they were working against the statute of limitations, which would have expired a week or two later, unless there was some sort of RICO conspiracy or conspiracy charges. They were 2 weeks shy of the 5-year statute of limitations on the lying to Congress charge.
Which, by the way,
lying to investigators.
Guess what? We're about a month away from the statute of limitations for everything related to January 6th. She's going to let it all expire. She's going to fail. Like, if you don't see the pipe bomber person indicted in the next 6 weeks, there will be no indictment. So she's letting the statute of limitations run again on more cases because she's there to protect the deep state who will reward her when she leaves office.
Stop for 1 second, because now we're going to go back to the beginning and I'm going to get really black-pilled. Now, okay, statute of limitations on the crime. If there was a cover-up subsequent to the crime, then you could argue the statute of limitations is told, or you could argue away on that. If they don't indict the Jan 6 pipe bomber, it's over unless there's some extenuating circumstance.
Right, correct. You got a whole bunch of there's a whole bunch of statute of limitations that are 5 years. And so January 6th was January 6, 2021. That means those statute of limitations run January 6, 2026. We're about 6 weeks away from that. And we're seeing no sign of any action at all. Steve Baker, to his credit, Kyle Seraphin, to his credit, when you do the interview with him for locals, you see where Seraphin is really strong. That you see the guy's been an agent, right? I still think he was dead wrong on James O'Keefe and some other things. So we still have our disagreements on that. And I think he could have used his words better as to Alexis Wilson. But all that being said, when he's talking about FBI stuff, he absolutely knows what he's talking about. He understands the entire way the investigative protocol works, the procedure works, the app, so on and so forth. And he was laying out a very compelling case that we now know who the January 6th pipe bomber is and some of the complicit parties with him. And yet the FBI is busy running interference, running fake stories at different places, creating response places on X. It's a 1 minute run interference against Tucker Carlson's investigation, and Brianna Morello, for example, is a huge fan of both Bongino and Patel. She's been given the runaround all the time. Mm-hmm. She gets the same sourced information that Tucker Carlson got, says, yes, it's absolutely confirmed as though the J6 pipe bomber is. And instead, they're running interference. They refuse to answer her questions, refuse to respond to Marina Devine. She works for the New York Post, for crying out loud. She's an institutional person. And she got confirmation of what Tucker Carlson got. And they ran interference against her. That's how desperate they are. The cover for the, Cash Patel, because I started calling him counterfeit Cash, because that's who he is. And God bless, I don't think Bongino wants to be on board a lot of this, but he's looking like ballless Bongino at this point. This is going to destroy any legacy he ever could possibly match. And they're all running around. Like when Bondi went down to talk about some low-level indictment in Florida, she's pretending she's still the state prosecutor. And Bondi and Patel and Bongino are still running around like they're the local police chief. That isn't what they were put in there for. And then they're running interference on these big cases. And so it's just a continuing embarrassment what they're doing. But you see in the Comey case, it had to get rushed by, and I don't blame Lindsay Halligan. She's never been in the Justice Department her entire life. I don't think she's ever done criminal defense in her entire life. So she's having to get a crash course on everything related to Comey and everything related to criminal law and federal criminal law in less than a week in order to get it done. But that doesn't change the fact that the federal magistrate flat out lied in what he said about her in the Justice Department in that case.
Okay, now what did he say? That was that's where I got.
What he said was that she had misled the grand jury about the facts and the law, and that she hadn't said things that she had said. and he took things out of context. Like she misled the grand jury about the Fifth Amendment. That isn't what she said at all. Oh, she misled the grand jury about the nature of the indictment. Also false. For example, try to claim that the grand jury. So what happened is the grand jury is given an indictment with 3 counts. They vote yes on 2. So the way the form of an indictment works, you don't go like scratch through 1 and then stick 2 and 3 into the docket, right? You go and reprint it so that it's 2 and 3. And then you have the grand jury form and sign it. That's what she did. Complete normal procedure. The magistrate judge lies. The magistrate judge says, you submitted that grand jury without the grand jury even seeing or reviewing that indictment. Complete fraud. Now, why the magistrate thought he could get away with it is because the grand jury transcripts are still redacted. So no one would know he was lying about the prosecutor.
They present charges 1, 2, and 3 to the grand jury. Grand jury says, okay, yes on 1 and 3, not on 2. Halligan goes and basically reprints, redacting the
form to properly represent what they just voted.
Okay, that makes sense.
He pretended that she didn't present it to them ever.
So that he misrepresented it as though what she filed had never been presented to the grand jury because it was a new document, but it was only the charges that the grand jury had in fact approved,
under existing Supreme Court law, there's no problem with that whatsoever.
Okay.
When you're changing the form or fixing a typo, no problem. What you can't do is literally have a grand jury foreperson sign off on an indictment the grand jury never considered.
Yeah.
That's what the magistrate accused her of, and he was flat out lying. And if we had a Congress worth anything at all, which I don't think we do, but they would use this to impeach that magistrate. Now the magistrate is appointed by the judges, by the way, gets 10-year terms. But you see, they're making rulings in that case they never make, and that contradict somebody smart out there, maybe Technofog or some of the others, should go through what these judges and magistrates have ordered in other cases. Find all the times they refuse to allow grand jury transcripts to be reviewed. Find all the times they refuse to allow internal communications within the U.S. Attorney's Office to be shared with the defense. Because what you will find is that they have never allowed it in their history until this case. And that will show you their bias and partiality and not abiding by the law in these cases. Because that's what it is. What you're seeing is rogue judges. But all of this is happening because she had to rush it in the first place, and it's in the Eastern District of Virginia in the second place, all because Pam Bondi's not doing her job.
Let me ask you this one question on the Steve Baker thing. The threats of a defamation lawsuit from the woman that he's identified in his expose to sue him. I made the joke that she's going to sue him if one way or the other. If she's innocent, she'll sue him. If she's guilty, she sues him. I'm not sure that she's going to sue him anymore, but
she hasn't even sent a retraction letter.
Well, that's what I understood would have to be done.
Personally, I want to be on the record. I think going from the Capitol Police to the CIA is totally normal. Nothing unusual there at all.
Hashtag sarcasm.
Her gate looks just like the gate of the pipe bomber. Totally coincidental.
Well, no, but Robert,
he's living next to the place where they were already under surveillance, knowing it was connected to the pipe bomber. Totally coincidental. Totally coincidental.
According to Julie Kelly, she had applied to the CIA before January 6th.
There you go, Julie. Now why don't you do 1 + 1 = 2? That she was already working at the CIA when she was undercover at the Capitol Police.
That's okay. Well, all right. So bottom line, though, she's whether she likes it or not, would be a single, a public figure regardless, if only because she shot at the crowd. And so,
she would have to show actual malice because she's got no chance of that.
That's
why they haven't even sent a letter. It's a corrupt corporate deep state lawyer that got hired, which somehow Julie Kelly thought that was impressive. I was like, no, that tells me this chick is guilty as heck. And knows it. And that means there's no way on God's green earth they're going to bring a suit that will subject them to discovery. So I don't see that. I don't see that as occurring. And Blaze is, kind of a pussified publication. God bless Glenn Beck. But when they printed and published it, that meant they had high confidence in its sourcing and analysis. That means whoever the expert is, they're not disclosing, is some big name, likely former law enforcement expert who's been affirmed to testify as an expert in court and put people away on less. That's what that means. So all the big talk, like Julie Kelly's better not mention her name. It's like, well, I'm going to look up her name and mention her about 50 times. Come sue me. Let's see how that works, darling. Because everything about her screams guilty.
Let me read a bunch of the chats before we fall too far behind here. I think I've already probably gotten well behind on the Rumble rants. I want to see Mamdani arrest Bibi. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy, says 808 Scotty. Randy Edwards says, Green is no saint, and I really need you to stop presenting her as such. Divorce soon after entering office, irrelevant. Rumors of multiple affairs, keep your schmeckle in your pants, irrelevant. Nancy Pelosi level personal wealth creation. Robert, I know.
Wait. That's just a lie. So, Randy, if you want to keep libeling, be ready to be sued for libel. Let me put this to rest once and for all. Marjorie Taylor Greene came up in her father's construction business. When she ran for Congress, her father was still alive, ran that business. Early on in her tenure in Congress, tragically, her father died. That meant she took over the construction business. All of her increase in wealth comes from taking over her father's construction business. You hopeless, lying libeler, Randy Edwards.
Well, I'm glad you clarified that, because they said it was the construction business that accrued in value, but if she inherited those shares, yes, she goes from
$25 million construction. She lives right across the border from me. She lives in Northwest Georgia. It's literally 10. I used to go all when I was a kid. All of my shopping right there in Rossville, Georgia. So, I mean, she lives right there. Everybody knows her dad's business.
Okay.
Everybody knew her business. So, no, it's not a surprise that business is worth $25 million. Of course it is.
Nelson Rise Jr. says, 2 titans of law. Thank you from a 36-year veteran in law enforcement. Thank you very much, Nelson. Keevster says, would like to hear Barnes' opinion of nursing no longer be considered a professional degree.
I'm all for nothing requiring professional degrees. I'm no licenses, none of that nonsense. People should know what skills you have or don't, what degrees you do or don't have. But the licensing, credentialing, control of our society has been a net negative. It creates artificial monopolies in professional services that lead to increased cost and decreased affordability and accessibility. And it allows them to politically weaponize it whenever they want. So I've been against it from day one, still against it now.
All right. And we got Trump's nickname game has gotten rather weak. That's the worst part, says Billdozer. Robert, this is what I wanted to shameless self-plug here. eBay. I'm selling a Shohei Ohtani, people. It's only at $81. This is a Population 3 PSA 9 kanji super short print. I'm joking, but go check it out. Okay, we'll get
he's put up. Also, through the holidays, special discount to join. Get an annual subscription to vivabarneslaw.locals.com. You get over 80 Hush Hush videos where you would have known what was happening on January 6th right after January 6th. Didn't have to wait 5 years for the feds to cover it up. Where you would have known what was going to happen in Ukraine years before they're now trying to meet in Geneva to solve that crisis. All of that, vivabarneslaw.locals.com. You can go there. There's a special discount code right at the top. Basically, I think was it Christmas in all caps, or what do we give it as?
I don't know. I don't think
it's a pin at the top of the board.
Oh, I'll go check it out in a second.
Okay, you can find it at vivabarneslaw.locals.com just for the holidays. Special discount, basically half off what the monthly rate would be for the whole year. Less than a cup of coffee to get the whole month. Less than a single cup of coffee.
You get
vivabarneslaw.locals.com.
Bourbon with Barnes, usually 3 times a week. You get every day after party show with me after the live streams. Occasional special guests, like you had Kyle Seraphin pop in afterwards for the supporters only. It's a wonderful community. Get your butts over there. And just to show you what's going on over there with our above average law community, this was from a tipped question. It says, breaking, the Doge department has been shut down, no longer exists.
That's correct.
Yeah, I just checked it out.
That was Soros, Scotty Bassett. I call him Soros, Scotty, even though I heard from some people who are unhappy about that in the trade, by the way. But the Soros, Scotty, because George Soros made him all his money. And when I start seeing policies different than what George Soros wants, then I'll quit calling him Soros, Scotty. But he didn't like Elon, almost got into fisticuffs with Elon. And once he pushed Elon out, that meant Doge was going nowhere. And that's why Doge never got to audit the Fed, never got to audit Fort Knox, never got to audit the IRS, never got to audit the CIA, never got to audit the Defense Department, was because Soros Scotty put a block to it. And as Elon Musk himself said, a bunch of Republicans in Congress wanted Doge shut down because they're all making money on it. Indeed, there is a published report now from Larry Johnson. We're going to try to have him on the next couple of weeks, of Sonar 21. Former intelligence analyst for the U.S. government. There's a lot of great independent reviews. He and his a partner of his, former business partner, identified about $40 billion stolen in Ukrainian aid that implicated Zelensky and the whole top regime. Not only that, it came back. It went through apparently Baltic bank accounts, including Croatia and Estonia, apparently, which are insane about this conflict. They're the classic yipping chihuahua of this Ukraine war, while not doing or risking anything themselves. And then came back and implicates and goes into the bank accounts, apparently, of high-ranking U.S. government officials, including members of Congress. So we'll see where that all ends up. Right now, they're trying to get a peace deal in Ukraine that is exceedingly generous to Ukraine, but it's not going to happen because Ukraine is going to refuse, because all of Europe and our U.S. deep state, including Congressman Porky Piggy Bacon out of Omaha, Nebraska, and Congressman Brian Useless Fitzpatrick out of Southeast Pennsylvania, and all these senators from Montana to Rhode Island, they all get really, you think they'd get upset about something that impacts their local community? No, they care about making sure the war continues in Ukraine, and are attacking President Trump, attacking Vice President Vance as we speak.
So who leaked the 12-point plan? It was Kellogg that allegedly leaked the plan to the media. This was revealed I didn't see the tweet that apparently, what's his face? Was it not
Witkoff? Witkoff was trying to send an email, and God bless the boomers. But remember, Trump did this with Comey. That's how Comey got indicted. Is Trump he was trying to send a message to Bondi, and he accidentally posted it on Truth. And so Witkoff, was trying to send a message about who illegally leaked these peace discussions, and he accidentally posted it as a reply on X.
But I don't understand how this. Oh no! And so then Kellogg did resign afterwards. What did he resign to?
So he got fired. So in the background of all of this, now if you can go to the vivabarneslaw.locals.com, you can see about half dozen or so hush hushes we did on Ukraine leading into the conflict, right after the conflict, predicting and previewing pretty much everything that's happened. The Ukrainian conflict is all about NATO and George Soros wanting to use Ukraine to destroy Russia and to get regime change in Russia. That's what it's always been about from the West. And so as part of that, they harassed the Russian-speaking, ancestrally Russian, historically Russian regions of eastern Ukraine. They overthrew the government that the whole country of Ukraine had voted in, staging a Maidan coup, as it is called, doing false flag events, having snipers that were really on the revolutionary side, but pretended they were the government snipers to take people out. Brought together the Azov Battalion. These are all neo-Nazis that go back to Operation Gladio. They have Nazi insignia. They worship a guy by the name of Stepan Bandera, huge Nazi terrorist who is so batshit insane. Even the Nazis were like, this guy's too crazy. We can't let him have control. So that's what all this comes from. Left behind after World War II to sabotage the communist world. And then once it took over in the 90s, Ukraine went from being one of the wealthiest Soviet republics to the poorest ex-Soviet republic, because we used it for human trafficking, for money laundering, for arms running. We used it for experiments with bioweapons. It was just a nasty bottom barrel.
It was Rogan. I forget who he was talking to. It might have been Theo Vaughn talking about, Googling whether or not Ukraine was involved in biolabs research. And I was just screaming while I'm jogging, play the Victoria Nuland clip, which says they're not biolabs, they are research facilities. And we're very nervous they're going to fall into the hands of the Russians, because that's what you'd be nervous about if they're just research facilities and not bioweapons labs. Yeah, so
Tulsi Gabbard has confirmed this and is investigating it. So that's the backdrop. We've got this disastrous war that could lead to World War III, utterly unnecessarily, because the American deep state and the European globalists, led by George Soros, want to use Ukraine as a battering ram to invade and infect Russia. Russia finally had enough of its people being bombarded and went in February of 2022, but they offered a quick setup. They made a big dash right to Kiev, hoping to motivate them to sign an agreement that would allow them to leave and be done and not stay in at all. In fact, all they would do is recognize the Minsk Accords that had been reached by Ukraine, Minsk I, Minsk II, twice before, to honor and respect the independence and the Russian-speaking population of eastern Ukraine, who instead, they suspended their right to use Russian. They harass people if they use Russian, even though Ukrainian is just a version of Russian, by the way. It's just nationalism and Nazi ideology on steroids, on an idea that was mostly foreign to the people and language of Ukraine going back a century. So that's the background. Ukraine started to badly lose this war about a year and a half ago when their counteroffensive utterly failed. Russia has been doing what is called a battle of attrition. Unsurprising, because those Russian generals over a century ago who invented the idea of a battle of attrition, which means you focus on destroying your enemy's resources first. You don't focus on grabbing land. You don't focus on big battles. You focus on destroying their logistics chain of supply and destroy their actual army. And that's what they've been busy doing. They've been busy wiping out. The Ukrainian casualties are probably close to 2 million. That 2/3 of their Ukrainian army and professionally trained men are gone. Now, mostly what's on the front line are people who are mentally disabled, people that are old folks, people that are really young. They're even sending pregnant women to the front lines. It is an utter disaster. And Russia is, and the way a battle of attrition works is as you take out that supply chain, at some point, that line of fortification and these deep line of fortifications throughout the Donbass that go back a century, that go back to when the Soviet Union was using it as a potential defense against invasion into the Soviet Union after the end of the Cold War. That these fortifications, without the necessary manpower, without the necessary supplies, will at some point start to crack, and then bam, it's like a flood. So that's why with the battle of attrition, it goes slow, goes slow, goes slow, goes slow, until bam, it goes real fast. Well, it started to go bam real fast this month as Ukraine started losing towns. And while Zelensky was running around saying, no, we haven't lost any towns. No, they only got like 60 soldiers there. Putin personally went down to that area and did a little press conference and said, in fact, we invite the world's media in to come in and see what's happened. And finally, some of us got through to the Trump administration. By the way, everything you're being spoon-fed by. Now, General Kellogg came up with the America First Policy Institute, an institute designed to corrupt and misdirect the Trump administration away from its MAGA roots into a corrupt, corporatist, Bushite-like set of policies. Kellogg comes from that. He comes from the military-industrial complex. His daughter is over there making money off this grift in Ukraine as we speak. He was recycling bogus intel and information from the Ukrainian front line from Zelensky that was just all lies. And the entire Trump administration was believing these ridiculous, preposterous lies. Oh, it's a stalemate. Russia can't win. Russia's only gaining little bits of territory. None of it matters. Ignoring that Russia's goal is to destroy the Ukrainian military first before it gets territory, not the other way around. Because it wants to keep Russian casualties low, giving them completely fake numbers about Russian casualties. Even though every time they exchange POWs or every time they exchange dead bodies, it's like it went from a 3-to-1 ratio to a 10-to-1 ratio to a 30-to-1 ratio, where there's 30 Ukrainians for each Russian. That's the level, the casualty disparity between these two because of how they're fighting and what the means and mechanisms they have available to them to fight. Russia's filled with trained soldiers. Ukraine's filled with men literally dragged off the street and thrown forward, along with weapons disparities, drone disparities, and missile disparities, and the like. Russian air defense is very good. Ukrainian air defense is mostly a joke because their U.S. air defenses, which have never been very good to begin with, and have been routinely taken out. So as it became apparent, finally, some of us got through to the Trump administration, and they started realizing, Kellogg's lying to us. So is Ratcliffe. Ratcliffe would just take whatever, MI6 would take whatever fake data Zelensky gave him, and they would recycle it as independent British research and send it down to the CIA, who Ratcliffe would then send up to the White House as independent American research.
It's the equivalent of the wrap-up smear. It's disinformation laundering.
Exactly. And that's what they're expert in. It's what they've really been doing for about better part of half a century. So, but finally, people like Vice President Vance and others start to figure out we're just being lied to. And then when they figure out, holy crap, this whole thing is going to fall apart. Ukraine's about to get wiped off the map. Russia's about to win fully. And they realize that no amount of tariffs, no amount of sanctions, no amount of weapon support, no amount of logistic support, no amount of intel support. For you people out there in America don't know, Americans have been on the ground from Ukraine all along. They're there on the air defense weapons. They're there on other weapons. They're there helping direct various counter attacks that took place at various times throughout the conflict. That is why our real leverage has always never been over Russia. It's always been over Ukraine. Tell Ukraine no more logistic support, no more intel support, no more troops on the ground, no more military support, no more Marshall support, no more monetary support. You know, Trump liked to pretend, we're not giving weapons to Ukraine. We're giving them to NATO, selling them to NATO. Take a look at who writes NATO's checks, everybody. It's the U.S. government. So we're just disguising our own things, just going through a hurdle of pretending I'm not really involved in the conflict when we were. So realizing that it's about to collapse and he might have his own Kabul, Afghanistan on his hands. He might have his own Saigon, 1973 on his hands. Trump was like, we got to get out of this thing fast. So he goes to Witkoff, come up with something that the Russians will buy and that we can force the Ukrainians to sign. So, but it was in the talk stage. And all that Witkoff did was take the ideas. But for those that don't know, in August, Trump promised Russia we would deliver a peace deal and we would get Ukraine to sign on.
This is when Putin came to Alaska.
Correct. We told them they would do what was the Istanbul Plus, which basically is in 2022, Ukraine signed on to a peace deal that they then rejected after Boris Johnson in the West told them to reject it. So to the great detriment of Ukraine. Now, flash forward 2 years later, Putin does a speech where he says, here's what the peace terms can be. The 5 regions of eastern Ukraine, the 4 plus Crimea, that have already voted to join Russia, that are historically Russian, that speak Russian, that have been voting pro-Russian for the entire time of the independent history of Ukraine, that have political rebellious movements in them that led after the Maidan coup, that these regions would in fact be recognized as Russian.
The ones that were being bombed for damn near a decade between.
Right. The ones where they had fun taking shots at farmers markets and kids' playgrounds. The Ukrainians did. That's part one. Part two would be that they would agree to a ceasefire while this negotiation was ongoing. That as long as Ukraine withdrew from all the Donbass, Russia would go no further in these other regions where they were located. And they would withdraw from those regions that are not part of these regions because they have military presence in Kharkiv and Sumy and elsewhere. And with this proposal back in summer of 2024, Ukraine would get to keep the Dnieper River, which is the heart of its industrial supply in the history of that nation. Keep Odessa, which is important historically, and that whole region, which is very rich with agricultural resources, but also direct access to the Black Sea for all kinds of critical economic purposes. Get to keep Kiev. Get to keep every region that has any substantial Ukrainian population in it and get an end to the conflict. That's what was proposed. But they would have to agree to be no NATO, no nuclear weapons, so non-NATO, non-nuclear power, as they had historically done, but had renounced over the last several years, and reduce their military force, that they would be a non-militarized country. That was the preconditions, essentially. And we agreed to those conditions in August. We said we would get Ukraine to sign on. Ukraine said no, and so Trump backed down. Then in October, Trump again went back to Zelensky when he was there and said, look, you need to do this. You're losing. It's getting worse. And Zelensky said, nah, I don't think so. And Soros Scotty and Narco Marco said, well, we agree with little the coked up midget.
Narco Marco is a damn good one, Robert.
For those that don't know, take a look at how Marcos Rubio's family made it. Suddenly went from working class to upper middle class real fast. You might just research any of the Cocaine Cowboys documentaries. You might see who's Narco Marco's brother-in-law in all of that. We'll tell you about his whole history and his whole past. But so in that backdrop of what was happening in Ukraine, we again, Zelensky says no in October, so Trump backs down. And then by mid-November, Vice President Vance figures out Kellogg's been lying to everybody. And so he tells Trump, and Trump's like, oh, crap, we got to get out of this fast before I get blamed for the disaster that's just about to happen. So he asked Witkoff, and asked Kushner, hey, see if we can get done, and we got to force it on the Ukrainians. They were still in the talking with Russians, coming up with a list. The military officials were going to go over to Ukraine to get on the ground better review and to tell Zelensky, no more of this nonsense, no more of this lying. You got to cut a deal now or you're done. You're finished. Your history. You're over. The lines are just about to collapse. They are cracking as we speak. So, but what happens is, as part of that, Witkoff shares it with Rubio and Kellogg. Kellogg immediately recognizes that this means the war is going to end. And they don't want the war to end. They don't want the war to ever end because they're upset. They don't care. Fight it to the last Ukrainian. Fight it to the last little part of Kiev under the delusion that by pitching the delusion they could win when their whole goal is just to keep sabotaging and undermining Russia. And there's a fair number of them that if we got into a nuclear war with Russia, they would all be in favor of it because that's how insane many of these people are. We're back to 1950s Dr. Strangelove level of nuts in key parts of the Pentagon. So, but instead, as soon as Kellogg sees it, he realizes where this is going, so he leaks it, runs to the press to sabotage the whole thing.
Check this out. It's so amazing what a useless propagandist tool AI is, depending on which one you use. No U.S. Special Envoy General Kellogg did not leak the peace plan. Instead, the plan was leaked by others as he was reportedly preparing to step down from his position. I mean, it's so stupid.
He wasn't planning on stepping down. He ran to leak it. At this point, Trump had already figured out through Vance that Kellogg had been lying to him all along about the status of what was happening on the battlefield, which was then in turn informing Trump's decision-making about how to approach a potential peace negotiation. And he went and illicitly leaked this to sabotage it at the last second. And that's why he did it. As soon as that happened, Trump said, "You're fired." And so so there was a list of what leaked was, "Oh, I'm just going to be stepping down." Kellogg just trying to get ahead of the story that he'd been fired, because he never should have been hired in the first place. Some of us said so from the get-go. So this guy's a liar, a fake, a phony, a fraud, MI6, military, war whore. And so but the House, and what happens as soon as it gets out there, all the war whores in the House, all the war whores in the Senate. In fact, some of these people you never hear from except when it involves a foreign war. Like look at Piggy Porky Bacon, the well-named Congressman Bacon from Omaha, who's retiring. He almost never says anything, but he's screaming about the mighty wonders of Ukraine. We must defend the mighty wonders of Ukraine. The Brian Fitzgerald, total loser from Southeast Pennsylvania, is going to lose in the upcoming elections. He's out there. Oh, this is indignation. And of course, they're all running around. What about Churchill? What would Churchill do in 1938? Not understanding that is no comparison of any kind whatsoever to what is taking place here. And so if Ukraine doesn't sign off, what will happen is like what happened with us with Afghanistan. We could have got a good deal in Afghanistan that could have protected some decent non-Taliban movement, but we kept saying no. They all said no. That's capitulation to the Taliban. So what do we end up with? Complete capitulation to the Taliban. Taliban running all of Afghanistan. If these morons and nitwits had been advising us during Korea, all of Korea would look like North Korea right now. Luckily, Eisenhower was not stupid enough to listen to those nuts. And that's how these people are. So they're putting together a deal that's ridiculous, like the other great ridiculous lie that Senator Rounds was circulating. Like, the Ruskies wrote this. Russians will never sign off on what's being proposed, by the way. That's how pro-Ukraine it is. It allows Ukraine to keep everything despite losing on the battlefield. To almost everything that is achievable to them. They're never getting back Crimea. Never, ever going to happen. They're never getting back Donbass. Never, ever going to happen. The reasons that Russia will keep for forever. That is the reality of where the line is. The only question is, do they get to keep any of their troops? Do they get to keep Odessa? Do they get to keep Kiev? Do they get to keep the Dnieper River? Because these big group of lunatics are going to so sabotage the peace deal that by the time whatever's offered to Russia will be such a joke, Russia will be like, nah, we'll see him in Kiev in about 6 months. And that's where it's going to go, and they'll deserve it. It's probably best for everybody if Russia just wins on the battlefield and removes this George Soros-inspired threat to world peace going forward anyhow. But credit to Vice President Vance for at least trying to get a reasonable peace that actually would have protected and saved many lives in Ukraine, and for it, he's getting bashed as a Russian asset.
Who was it during the RNC debate who said, the Ukrainian lives lost was a good investment?
Lindsey Graham has said that about a half dozen times, but I think it was Mike Pence and some others who said it during the debates.
I'm gonna double check that in a second. Robert, I wanted to bring this one up while we had the entire audience, because Bender is great. And I don't have my board to show everybody, but over on Locals, Bender is Great is back by popular demand and just in time for the holidays. Now back in stock, I made another batch of waving wooden American flags and would like to offer a discount to the Locals community. Unfortunately, or fortunately, Bender, it's going to be for everybody now. There's 15,000 people. How many people do we have watching? 20,000, give or take, between all platforms. So 20,000. Hopefully you sell out immediately. Go to renixwoodworking.com. Use code LOCALS50 for $50 off. I also made another golden Gadsden American hybrid. Be sure to check it out. They are works of art. So check it out, everybody. Chaton says the whole country of origin thing on X is going to backfire. People who are overtly not American are taking the piss now. People not understanding how VPNs work are clueless. It's not that big of a win. It's a stupid thing. I didn't even know what was going on. What finally got Marjorie Trader Green to leave office? Okay, we talked about that. Why has President Trump left supporters like Alex Jones out to hang to dry? Good question.
Well, I mean, it's the same. I mean, Alex Jones is support. If you find yourself bashing Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massey, you're part of a cult. You're no longer an independent thinker. Mm-hmm. You're no longer. You don't actually care about policy. You worship an individual who can change. You end up like looking as embarrassing as cat turd. Where day one you're saying I really support this policy, and then day two I totally oppose that policy. And then day three, I really support this policy, where the only consistency is whatever Donald Trump tells you to think. That makes you an embarrassment, not something you should always be independent. The reason why everybody came to Trump was because of the policies he supported, not because they think he's the second coming of Jesus.
When will American citizens matter as much to Trump as Ukrainian and Israeli citizens? Gray 101. Atrophy Cat says FOIAs routinely deny, quote, records compiled in courts of investigation and techniques and procedures, even after someone is convicted. How do we change that? Robert, also, I was told that one of the reasons why they misspell names in emails is because if you make a FOIA request for a name spelt in a certain way, if they mistype it, or if there's a typo, it will not fall within the ambit of that FOIA request. Is that accurate?
Yes. Because what is the key thing is the FOIA person who receives the request
has to do a search, aggregate search. So that's because they were saying that's why they misspelled Obama in some of those emails. That's a bunch. Well, no matter how cynical you get, Robert, it's tough to keep up. Gray 101 says so frustrated with Trump administration as of this point. Impeachments seem a welcome change.
By the way, the reason why Epstein and other people were belying in those is not because they ever thought their emails would be subject to FOIA. It's because they knew their emails were being monitored by the NSA. And they knew the NSA was running those Boolean search terms. Amazing. And so they were trying to hide it from the National Security Agency.
Amazing. Fan says disclosing Epstein files does not prevent prosecution. They should not have given that out in the bill passed. See the Veil says, isn't that what MAGA was, though? Built on ideals and hopes and prayers. MTG held everything MAGA going in. SRN says, as a whole, Muslims make a small percent, but they take over areas and push everyone else out. Dearborn, loud public calls to prayer in the streets. Same thing when they started in the UK, playing victim while forcing cultural dominance. It's a cultural invasion. Who was it? Seth Dillon?
That's been true at Dearborn for a long time, and there's no evidence they're actually trying to do that at Dearborn. Outside of Dearborn. They like their little community. They stay mostly within that community. They don't mostly go out. Dearborn isn't going up to Ann Arbor or going up to other areas in Michigan and trying to do this. It's our groups going into their Dearborn community and making fun and provoking them. So that's just being real about it. And I say this as somebody who popularized the term Islamofascism, so much so that the Fuentes fans are still whining about it. So it's not like I'm any fan of politicized, radicalized Islam. But let's not get ridiculous about imagining things that just don't exist, because the pro-Israel crowd wants you focused in that direction. Let's be honest.
Ginger Ninja says you don't have to agree, but Bondi coming out and making a case in court that can and will be used to ban semi-automatic rifles and handguns. That's the last straw. I don't know if I'll vote Republican.
Oh yeah, because they made legal arguments to justify the National Firearms Act without a tax still being able to regulate that would drastically and dramatically expand the scope of taking away people's Second Amendment rights to a degree that have never been made in the history of the Justice Department.
Is there enough evidence to indict, or criminally charge Pam Bondi, Susie Walls for their actions? See the Veil. I would probably say no. Ginger Ninja says the Republican Party is done for. People voted Trump in office twice under the lie that he would reform it. Turns out they just voted Donald J. Bush. I'm going to make a beer. I'm going to make a beer and name it after him, Bush Light. Our man Barnes was very sick around this time last year. As disappointing and betrayed I feel about Trump and his administration's terrible behavior, I'm grateful for Robert and Viva's good health. Touch wood. And go into the holiday season. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you. MTG can sleep the sleep of the just. You guys should too. Rick Cortez, Ginger Ninja, Barnes comes up with better nicknames. Okay, I'll get back to those afterwards. Robert, we should start making some tracks here. What else? Hold on. Let me go back to our list.
So we got SCOTUS, parental rights, involving trans issues, executive power, birthright citizenship. We got the National Guard and ICE both being blocked. We got big tech being protected. We got who is a terrorist as CARE sues the state of Texas. That might be a natural transition from the Dearborn topic.
Let's do that. CARE, I've always heard that they've had close association with the Muslim Brotherhood, with terrorist organizations, financial support for various organizations. I've never looked into it in any meaningful sense. They were designated at the state level in Texas as a terrorist organization.
Yeah.
Now,
Kind of funny from Texas. But.
well, I read through it in as much as I can understand what I can understand without having done any meaningful deep dive. The argument is that that's a federal level designation, not a state level designation, and I can understand that. And so, is there a better argument why the designation should stand, or what it even means coming from a state level designation?
I think it's Abbott wanting to show off while he seeks his fourth term. Because there's groups of Muslims that are trying to create their little mini Islamic communities in Texas, buying up like a whole bunch of land and property. And that has people understandably concerned. But this is not the way to go about it. One, there's no Texas law that provides for designating, as far as I could find, an organization a foreign terrorist organization, entirely a federal law that requires all these federal standards be met, that has a due process provision built in, such the designation is not permanent or has no legal consequence until you, the designated organization, have the opportunity to petition to protest it, both in the administrative agency and judicial review, none of which was afforded CARE. So CARE is the Council for American Islamic Relations, formed, I think, 1994. The organization is principally meant to parallel and be the opposite to AIPAC. So AIPAC, the American Israel Political Action Committee, formed after the American Zionist groups were getting political heat. At the time, Zionist wasn't all that popular as a term. So they shifted to, once Israel was formally designated as its own independent nation, shifted to that and to try to reduce their apparent foreign ties. Technically, all these organizations are American organizations. They are formed in America, raise their money in America, speak in America, so on and so forth. Same with CARE. Now, CARE has attacked and criticized all terrorist attacks, so much so that ISIS designated CARE's leadership for assassination at various times in the past. So I'm not a fan of CARE, but I'm not a fan of AIPAC either. But I see them as both two organizations that, to some degree, CARE focuses on issues related specifically and only to Islamic students in the United States. But often it feels like they're advocating for foreign nations, much as I feel AIPAC is advocating for foreign nations. And as such, not a big fan. I think they're entirely legally entitled to do so. I don't think they're a Foreign Agency Registration Act, a law I've never liked because it can be so easily misused and abused to circumvent and undermine and sabotage First Amendment freedoms. But I'm not a political fan of organizations that are all about foreign nations for the most part, whether it's CARE or AIPAC. But I don't see how this designation makes any sense. So he put in the designation solely for the purposes of mostly defaming them, but to say you can't own property in the state of Texas. Now, CARE has repeatedly sued Abbott and won over and over and over again because Abbott does these kind of grandstanding acts to look good. I think he often knows it will never be enforced because he doesn't actually want it enforced. That, like, when there were legitimate concerns raised about this Islamic community they were trying to get with certain territory, there were certain legal actions he could have taken to limit the risk of that. He didn't. Instead, he would later take actions that were mostly symbolic and shambolic because he knew they'd get rejected in the courts. And that's what I think he's doing here. CARE will win this suit because they didn't afford any due process. It's trying to chill speech and association without having a clear statutory or constitutional basis.
Okay, that was my understanding as well. I'm not convinced. I'm just not familiar enough with the allegations of ties to terrorism above and beyond, the occasional article here and there that says they were guilty of, giving funds to an organization accused of terrorism.
If you're in that world, it's very, very hard. It's like being a pro-Israeli group and not be implicated by something some rogue official or individual has done, because it's very hard to advocate for Israel and not get intertwined with other aspects of it.
That's a problem.
It's very hard to be the Islamic representation here in the United States when there's been so much Islamic inspired terrorism over the past 30 years that you don't end up tied to the Muslim Brotherhood, tied to other groups. And they would argue in their defense, they've criticized every terror event that's ever happened in the name of Islam, that they've been targeted by Islamic terrorist groups themselves because of this criticism. So that's what their defense is. The counter is it's very hard to be. Muslim Brotherhood is the most influential group throughout the Islamic world, and it is a group that has embraced terrorism as a tactic in its various manifestations, whether it's Hamas or others. So that's the counterpoint.
All right. let's do
I
the.
don't actually believe CARE itself is a foreign terrorist organization.
No,
that's
well,
why
look,
that's why the State Department's never designated them as such. And it's not like the State Department's all that restrictive. When the State Department, who was it? Oh, they decided the fake cartel of the sun is a foreign terrorist organization, so they can go in and try to murder. And by the way, everything about Venezuela has nothing to do with Venezuela. Nothing about Venezuela resources. Nothing to do with drugs. It is solely so that Narco Marco can finally conquer Cuba. He wants to return to his native homeland. Of his ancestors and free Cuba once and for all. It has been his grand crime. And who is the number one supplier of oil and energy to a economically ravaged and wrecked economy, made worse by the recent hurricane, to Cuba? It's Venezuela. Take away the now. As Alexander McCourse pointed out, how are they going to stop the Ruskies from helping out instead? I'm thinking they think they can somehow maneuver through that. But this deposing Maduro is all about stopping Venezuelan aid to Cuba so that Narco Marco can free Havana and we can have a big Donald Trump tower on the river of on the ocean there sometime soon. That's what that's all about.
Robert, totally rough segue. Boasberg is back in the news again. Judge Boasberg is the same judge who was giving Trump a hard time on. Oh, geez, what was he involved in? He was the one ordering the planes to turn back, I think, as they were in the sky.
Oh, yeah, no, this is the guy that he was also the guy. I mean, he's connected to all of it. He's like within one. It's not 6 degrees of separation. You don't got to be Kevin Bacon to be Judge Boasberg. He's 1 degree of separation. Who was illegally spying on senators? Judge Boasberg. Who was illegally spying on members of the Congress? Judge Boasberg. Who was ordering planes reversed and illegal into the United States? Judge Boasberg. Who is it that's trying to hold the Trump administration in contempt of court as we speak for simply doing their constitutional duty? Judge Boasberg. And who is it that covers for Facebook when they're busy? Literally, their internal correspondence said, just find this whole group as let's make sure we have these kids have access to groomers. That's Facebook's own language. Trying to get perverts access to your kids using monopoly power. And guess who just covered for him this week?
Boasberg. So Boasberg in this ruling, in order to argue away or conclude that Facebook doesn't have a monopoly on the personal social networking sphere, basically made it, or it either is a distinction that existed before I knew of it, or they made it up, which is that Facebook operates, or argued that they operated in the personal social media, the personal network sphere, whatever the acronym was. And Boasberg, in order to say that Facebook doesn't have a monopoly, basically included them in all of social media. So Facebook against YouTube, against Twitter, against all social media, which Boasberg then concluded they don't have a monopoly in, and therefore, what's the conclusion to say they no longer have a monopoly because I'm not using the personal social network sphere, but rather social media as a whole, in order to get them out of the trouble that they were in?
So this was a particular subcategory of market monopoly, which was the social networking space, which was that by buying WhatsApp and Instagram, Facebook suppressed market competition for quality social networking spaces. But one of the sub-scandals that came out was that Facebook actually was using its social networking to help groomers get access to underage children, even knowing that this was facilitating pederast and pedophiles. I mean, which is just shocking. Yet the Justice Department, Pam Bondi, has done nothing about this, literally nothing. Now, who is trying to do something on the antitrust side is Assistant Attorney General for Antitrust, Gail Slater. She is actually bringing a major case that has remedies coming up in December against big tech and Google in particular. But they're looking at all of these actions in all of these cases. So there is still some good work happening at the Justice Department under President Trump. It just has to happen despite rather than with the help of Attorney General Pam Bondi and Assistant Attorney General Todd Blanche. But this was one that was originally brought by the Federal Trade Commission, where they just kind of, some of it was limitations in legal advocacy, but mostly, and some of it is, as Matt Stoller, who writes Big Tech on Trial and Big Tech publications on Substack, comes from the left, but is a longtime, deep antitrust guy, is sincere and effective in his advocacy on the antitrust side. And he covers this in detail in ways that are both accessible to the person that's just the casual observer, but also has enough detail for the informed observer to really understand what's taking place. So I recommend his Substack for ongoing coverage of these issues. We were going to interview him a year or two ago. Timing didn't work out. Probably come back to it. But he's big like anti-Israel, so that was like a hang up for a little while. Now maybe not so much, but that's another story. But what Boasberg does, Boasberg doesn't understand it. He doesn't use apparently doesn't use much of the social media himself, so he's no understanding. Number two, what people forget when they call these judges Marxist or communist, they're not. They're corporatist. They're neoliberal corporatists. They're country clubbers. They went to the Ivy League. They are big corporate lawyers. All their friends and their pals are corporate lawyers. So they're happy to please and placate and protect big corporations, especially those big corporations that are doing things like helping pederasts and pedophiles get access to your kids, because that's the kind of guy Boasberg is. And so Boasberg went to great lengths to dismiss the case and not allow any remedy or relief for the antitrust violations or other more disturbing violations that Facebook was engaged in part because it's a small slice of the sector. It was just looking at the social network monopoly, not looking at the ad monopoly or the search monopoly or the other monopoly being raised by a range of other antitrust cases.
Amazing, Robert. We might have to take the party over to locals sooner than later because we're in a small unit and the family's coming back from dinner. When they go out for dinner, and like, oh, Dad doesn't get to come out for dinner. I don't like going out for dinner, so this is the best excuse to avoid going out. Oh, say it again.
Where you traveling?
In Key West. No, we're not in Key West. Sorry, we're in the Keys. So just a little bit.
Keys are beautiful. That is one nice.
It's
amazing. I went out to eat there. I probably wouldn't get back to about 4 a.m.
They said they're getting shakes. I said drink slowly. Robert, let me take a few chats. I'm going to give everyone the link to local so you can come for the after party. I just want to get a few of our tipped questions more so here. We had a new member join and I didn't shake the bell because I didn't have it. Let me do this real quick. Dapper Dave, what the F? Okay, we got that one. We got Ginger Ninja. Barnes, I made a nickname for Julie Karen. You may co-opt it too.
Julie Karen.
Do we need to cancel our current then rejoin? Try to get it, but I'll screenshot that. I'm not sure about that, Paracleric.
Yeah, we have to ask the locals people. So sometimes you have to wait. The discount's good through Christmas. So sometimes you have to wait until your annual renewal is up, but I'm not sure.
Often Wrong John says, according to Martin Armstrong, Scotty was managing Soros' investment until he lost $2 billion. I think the ruble collapsed in 1998. Often Wrong John says, have you thought about a hush-hush on flight MH17 as a false flag? Merchant Marine says, Viva or anyone, has Robert said who he would like to be replace Bondi? Who does he think could get? I mean, not Ed Martin.
It's very simple.
Bailey?
I would remove Bondi and Blanche and then let Dillon and Slater come up to number 1 and number 2 in the Justice Department because they're already Senate confirmed. And unleash Ed Martin. There are stories that are being denied, but that Blanche is to turn the Schiff grand jury investigation into a grand jury investigation of Ed Martin. The explanation that's coming out from supporters of Blanche, like Chad Mizell and others, is that that's not the case. They're just crossing their T's and dotting their I's in order to be able to secure a full indictment of Schiff. I'm not. It's kind of they're doing it in a peculiar way. If that's the case, I understand the logic. Hopefully, that is what is the case. Hopefully, there isn't something crazy like an investigation into Ed Martin by Blanche himself. Hopefully, we see instead an indictment of Schiff. That's probably what will turn out to be the case. But that gives you an idea of the level of distrust people have outside the Justice Department of the Justice Department.
Roostang asks, Robert, is it true that the U.S. is funding Afghanistan to the tune of $40 million per week and that the Taliban leaders are getting this funding to do as they please?
Wouldn't surprise me.
All right. And let me just do 2 quick ones over on Rumble. What do we have left by way of stories, Robert?
So I think we briefly covered the Ukrainian corruption one last week.
Yeah.
And this week. So we got SCOTUS on parental rights, executive power, birthright citizenship. We got the National Guard and ICE both being blocked from enforcing laws. We've got school secrecy and parental rights, privacy, web and traffic. When one of those traffic cameras invading your privacy, when are those little websites you visit invading your privacy? Suit against Adidas in that regard. Special tuition discounts for illegals in California leads to a DOJ lawsuit. Russiagate on appeal. And then the bonus cases of the AWOL citizen arrest and how not to commit a crime. Don't Google it, your defense right before you commit it.
Let me read these here. The Engaged View says, if Ukrainians support the war, why has their army had over 100,000 desertions last year? Why are they threatening to launch drone strikes against deserting units? Jonathan Barnes for AG, Gouveia for DAG, Roberts rants and Roberts sarcasm, a welcome change of the DOJ. This is Joe because it's old as Methuselah. The Jewish guy walks into a wall and breaks his nose. Joden 80. Dominate it 1. Neuro Tonight live stream chat box with nonsense video on the side is set up for 9 p.m. Central. King of Bilton says, I'm tired of all government. It seems they are all the same. Randy Edward, point of order. Pointing out well-established rumors is not slander. It's equivalent to caveating with my opinion. So in my opinion, Mr. Barnes is guilty of slander by calling me a liar. Moose Tree 87, Barnes is dead wrong about Muslims. What would happen to him? What would have to happen for? I don't think Barnes is wrong. I think Robert is making different points than Muslim communities is different than Islamic radical Islam. Right. Randy Edwards says Green is bailing out just after her congressional pension is vested. I don't think that's what she was in it for. Dominate one. Marjorie Taylor Greene is my favorite politician right now. She has proved. She is for term limits. All right, Robert. So the woman was convicted. This is the case of the woman Googling. She shoots her husband dead in a parking lot while they're effecting custody change of one of their kids. She is charged. I mean, she's charged with murder, I believe. I think she was convicted, sentenced to 30 years, and she was sentenced on an obstruction charge. The obstruction charge resulted from the fact that her sister, for whatever the reason, had her computer, and she told her sister not to hide it and hide it well. And then it turned out that her sister ended up using it for something. I don't know how it got seized by cops. And it turns out that the woman, prior to shooting her husband dead and claiming self-defense, was looking up the laws of self-defense and looking up, I don't know how to shoot, not really how to shoot your husband, looking up search results that would indicate premeditation on how to provoke shooting someone dead and then arguing self-defense. And what did they downgraded her murder, but kept her sentence at 30 years and kept the obstruction charge because she obstructed by telling her sister to conceal the computer. What's the broader implication of this case?
Nothing other than never in writing. It's basically the Cartman case. Oh, the Cartman does. I think he thought Token, who's the black character, they named him Token on South Park. And this was after the Zimmerman thing. And he thinks that Token's going to lead like a race revolution or something because of Black Panther. I don't remember if these are connected or not, but whatever it was, he came to determine that he needed to shoot Token. But he was researching how did Zimmerman do it. He's like, okay, I've got to be within my circle of safe space. So he draws a little circle around him and he waits for Token. He goes, oh, keep coming. And as soon as Token steps in the corner, bam! I had to do it. He was in my space.
Well, it sounds like the guy who stabbed Austin Metcalf. I forget his name now, but it sounds like, hey, self-defense. Hey, he threatened me, stab, and now I'm claim it. All right, so
almost as good as the citizen arrest AWOL case.
Okay, so the citizen arrest. This is a guy who what did he think they were? He thought was it a neighbor or was it someone in his apartment complex?
No, it wasn't even his apartment complex. It was just a neighbor.
He thought his neighbor was shooting pornography in their home, so he went to citizens arrest them, which included surveilling them, dressing up like a pizza guy, and he entered their home to place them under citizens arrest. The woman had a gun, which he took from her, but she, apparently managed to, discharge, get the bullets out of the gun. The guy basically, it's not kidnapping because it was in their place, but confines them in their own home under the pretext of a citizen's arrest. I mean, it's freaking stalking, forcible confinement, and basically psychotic behavior. And they basically concluded that no, it was all criminal. You had no basis for assuming there was a reason to do a citizen's arrest. It has to be a felony committed in your presence. This all came up in the Ahmaud Arbery case as to whether or not it was legit.
And the only difference is this is Nevada. And Nevada's actually broad in that they allow, if it's a state felony, for you to execute a citizen's arrest without it being in your presence. But the question was, this was not a state felony. This was only a federal felony, even if he was right. And so they said when it's a federal felony, you've got to personally witness it or you can't execute the arrest. And even if you were going to do it, they mentioned that there are 3 things he didn't try to do, which is you need to announce yourself before you go into somebody's property. Mm-hmm. You need to demand admittance to the property before you enter the property. And you need to explain your purpose. I'm here to execute an arrest for your felony crime of X. I demand admittance. And if they don't admit you, maybe you can go in, which is kind of crazy in my opinion, but gives you an idea. For some of these states, old citizens arrest laws are really broad. They still got the posse laws, basically allowing posse still on the books. But this guy didn't do any of that. He became upset. Also, you find interesting, he just accidentally came across this person's pornography?
Anyway, an absolute bat poop crazy thing. Everybody, I shared a link in the chat. I almost forgot to talk about this. Let me bring this up because Rumble right now is. Hold on, sorry, I just heard something in the backdrop. Is trying to test out their Android app, and they've made an app for Android. This is the beta testing of the crypto thing, so that you can go and actually tip with crypto. You can go, if you want to do this, you click on the tip button, and you can tip with Bitcoin if you have any wallet by going to this QR code and scanning it. They've made an app for Android so that you can download the Rumble wallet. You can hold crypto, buy crypto. This is not a recommendation or anything. It's just the app is the Rumble wallet, but it's only available right now in beta to the public on Android. So check it out, download it if you're so inclined, and give it a try if you want to support the channel and whatever. The link is here. And if there's any trouble with it, I'll be posting the links. You can go to support and let Rumble know if there's problems with the app, and if you have any recommendations, tag and whatever. They're very responsive. So just to do that, let's take the party over to the locals, because the family might be coming back from dinner sooner than later. Get your butts over there. We got to go raid somebody. That's what we have to do. Let me see who's on. We'll go raid Matt Morse TV. Oh, Eric John Pizza. But Eric John, we're not going to raid you just because it'll be people will be a little too confused if they go to a pizza making channel after this. But everyone check out Eric John Pizza regardless. And we're going to go raid Matt Morse TV, who's talking politics, stuff that's more in the realm of what we're doing. So we're going to go raid Matt Morse. Come on over to locals. Right after we do this, Amanda Louise, JM Dentist says, Amanda Louise on X revealed the source of Trump's H-1B narrative. Ashram Matwami, unregistered foreign agent boasting of influenced Trump and has similar narratives. If true, that means Trump was sold slave labor should be kept, and the training pitch is an intentional lie. I hope we get him before he self-destructs. Okay, interesting. So before we go over to locals, I'll give everyone the link there, and we're going to go raid Morris John. So come on over to locals. And right now, if you're not going to come over, we're going to go raid Morris John, who says, what does he say here? Trump is bringing the charges. So everyone's going to like that. We're going to go raid there and have the after party. Robert, what do you have going on this week?
Not sure. So Monday interview, but I don't know when the show will be, with Michael Malice, the little anarchist. And then maybe on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern time, maybe live with the Duran to cover all the things, Venezuela, Ukraine, U.S., Europe, elsewhere. Maybe it will either be Wednesday or it will be the following week. But right now, tentatively Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern time with the Duran. Otherwise, live Tuesday night with the vivabarneslaw.locals.com, where there's a discount code you can go find right now. If you go to vivabarneslaw.locals.com, you can get basically half off an annual subscription. Just got to enter the discount code. It's right there at the top of the board. And then and we'll have a Barnes brief. And then otherwise, it's Thanksgiving here in America. So we'll be back home in Tennessee soon.
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Robert, put in a good word with Michael Malice for me. I'd love to have him on, or do an interview with him one day. All right, I'm hitting the raid, and after that, you're going to go there. And if you're not going to go there, you're going to come to see us on vivabarneslaw.locals.com. I'll be live all week. Tomorrow, I should be live. Be able to make the schedule. Back at home on Tuesday, and tomorrow, I think Ivan Raiklin's going to come back on and talk about some of the juicy deep state stuff. So we're going to do that. Okay. That's it. Let's do it. We're going over to locals, people. Godspeed, Rumble, CommieTube. Before you go, make sure you subscribe, share my stuff there. And we're using, YouTube as the platform to publicize vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Everyone, enjoy the week, and we will see you all tomorrow. And locals, here we come.